In 2013, I got very ill with a hypothyroidism caused by a virus. So basically the guy said my nervous system shut down. So it's a nervous breakdown. You get like a little flu and it should go in 2 days and it then attacks another part of the body, attacked my thyroid. And I got really sick. You know how I got better? I had some really big hits in 2014. Took a year of feeling sorry for myself and being
like
sick.
A true exec right
I
there.
realized, trust me, I know the power of a hit.
Yeah.
It's a drug and it hit me. In 2016, the world changed. I worked for labels from 1994. I joined a company called London Records through to last week of 2021. I was the president of Capitol in the UK, which didn't exist prior to Universal buying EMI. Lucien asked me to change the name of the company I had, which was London Records, which I'd already signed Sam Smith and 5 Seconds of Summer to become Capitol, because he said he wanted to expand EMI's presence rather than contract it with when they bought EMI. He wanted to make the EMI labels bigger.
Uh-huh.
So he had this vision and he said, I want to change the London company we created with you into Capitol, which I obviously agreed. But 2016, the world changed. 2013, that happened, by the way. I joined Universal in 2011. But let's get back to 2016. The world changed in 2016 because up until then, I genuinely, on my hand on my heart, this is my opinion, the majors controlled distribution.
Correct.
And the reason they controlled distribution, because it went through bricks and mortar.
Correct.
So what happened is in America, you had to get in Walmart. And you had to, in the UK, you had to get in Woolworths, or you had to get in the supermarkets.
Targets.
And the Targets in America, Fnacs in France. There was the equivalent everywhere in the world. But these stores were not music stores. They were general stores. So they maximum would take, in a week, maybe 20 new titles. Maybe 20 new titles. But they would have all the, like Bob Marley Legend, or they'd have the Bee Gees Greatest Hits, or they'd have Born in the USA by Bruce Springsteen. They would have the big titles all the time, because they were the legendary classic titles. Thriller by Michael Jackson would have been in there every week. So they would take 20 new titles. But the majors would probably put 18 of those 20 titles in, at least 18, right? I'm not saying it in a bad way. They had the conversation, they had the dialogue. They did the same at radio. And therefore it was harder as an independent to get your music in store. Yeah, you could get in the mums and pups, the equivalent around the world, but you couldn't get mass penetration. Then 2012, I believe Spotify comes online. People can correct me, but my recollection is 2012. But Spotify didn't really hit as hard until 2016, when I felt the tipping point. The reason I say that is in 2014, both Adele released an album and Sam released an album, and the Sam was a breakthrough album, and we both held the records back from Spotify so we could get physical in store, right? Which seems so antiquated, and I'm almost embarrassing admitting it now, but at the time it seemed like the right thing to do.
Hindsight though, right?
Hindsight.
Yeah, sure.
The chairman of Hindsight Records is the most successful executive of all time. It's the easiest job in the world.
Undefeated.
The chairman of Hindsight Records is the easiest job in the world. But I can look back with hindsight and say, I was foolish, even though we did it. We did it to protect the artist. And by the way, the album is now at 27 million copies worldwide, so it still worked out. But I felt from 2016 onwards, there became a democratization of distribution, which meant that Spotify or Apple or Deezer, later Tidal, later all these things, it didn't care. It said, yo, just put your music up. And if the public liked it, they loved it, but something else was happening at the same time. Alongside this, where everyone could get the music up, you could do a deal whenever DistroKid turned up, and TuneCore, and Platoon, and AWOL, and all these things, all these distributors, and now we have unbelievable ones, 1RPM, Symphonic, you got Empire, all these things came up all around the world, United Masters. with Steve and everyone, you've got all these things going on. But at the same time, you suddenly found this channel, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. Before, your label in each country had to commit to a release, and they had to commit to going to radio. And now, you don't need them to go to radio until you're at a certain level of streaming.
Right.
And you have this platform where your artists, my artists, can talk to the world on day one, second one. They can build an audience of 10 people, 100 people, 1,000 people, 10,000 people, just by posting about their music, about their lives. They can create a Discord channel. They can do all these things. They go, I've even hearing artists now don't even stream yet, right, in any meaningful way, playing 2,000 cap rooms. And I'm like, and I'm looking at a streaming going, no, they're not playing. And then someone says to me, look, I speak to the agent or the promoter, and he's like, yeah, we sold these tickets out in like minutes. And I'm like, really? It's like, come and see the show. You go and see the show, and it's like, holy shit, it's real. What happened? Before, we had to beg MTV or beg the TV channel, or was it back in the day for America, TRL and Park, or all these things, right?
106 and Park,
106
TRL.
and Park, whatever,
yeah.
TRL, mixing them all up. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, you put a record up, people, either a viral moment happens, or more importantly, before you have a viral moment, start building brick by brick, fan by fan, conversation by conversation. Take a leaf out of Taylor Swift's book, where she still replies to some of her Instagram posts by her artists herself. Of course, it's not all of them, but she'll pick a few. All she has to do is do 1 or 2 a week, and the whole world goes, oh, did you see Taylor responded?
Yeah.
And then the other millions of fans say, shit, she's reading this stuff.
Yeah, she's reading it. She might respond to me. There's validation in it because now the artist that you love is now recognizes who you are. It's funny, in the same breath, in 2016, our lives changed.
Yeah.
And I mean that with myself, Byron, and Jesse, because August 23, 2016, we put out a record called Figures, and it goes bananas. Literally, I would say probably 100 to 200 emails from every single record exec, A&R, chairman. The first person I ever spoke to, an executive in the labels, was Darkest.
Yeah.
And he called me from Ireland. He told me he signed Amy. He said, I get it. I said, and then we were overwhelmed.
Yeah.
But we took our time because we were like, well, we were at the same time getting mentored by Pat.
Yeah.
Also starting to see, listen, we don't necessarily need the labels right now because we have the fans. She has Instagram, and that was the main method at that time. There wasn't even stories at that time. Video just got introduced a year prior.
TikTok probably didn't exist yet.
No TikTok.
It was Vine.
No TikTok.
Is Vine now?
Vine was there, but it wasn't really something that we used a whole lot, but I think it was there.
Yeah.
And I remember within I've told this before on this podcast, but within 30 days or so, you get the TuneCore statement.
Yeah.
I called Byron. I go, yo, are you look at what's in the statement here? And he goes, no. I'm like, go open it up. And we saw it, and it was tens of thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
And it was just the beginning, and we were like, okay, looks like we have some leverage when we go to these labels.
Yeah.
And it really changed, and we were the first ones, if I'm not mistaken, and I've been told this before from a couple of lawyers, that the deal that we did was one of the first that was ever done in a major label system, which is a 50-50 profit split at the time. There was distribution in it and all that, but that was just it was a very different, and we licensed the record, reversion back, I think 10, 12 years. Can't remember exactly right now, but we had a lot of leverage, and we made sure that we got exactly what we needed because Jesse had the fans from the beginning. It was amazing.
We're living in an age where the power has now become dispersed between, not just the labels used to have the power, and then when the artists were big, they got what's the word? A balance with the label. Now, the artists can build their own ecosystem.
Absolutely.
The bigger the ecosystem, the better negotiation to get how the rights work. But one thing I will say is, I think artists in the modern age get too focused on the rights, the splits, whatever. If you really want to be a superstar, I don't think there's a problem going with a major label.
Can you be a superstar in 2025 at the level that they were 10 years ago?
Oh, 100%.
Okay, how?
I think it can be even bigger.
Even bigger?
Even bigger.
Okay.
I find it like unbelievable these South Korean acts play stadiums outside of South Korea. It's just unbelievable to me.
And they have incredibly robust ecosystems.
But they build that stuff.
Yeah.
And they build their ecosystems, and then they travel around the world. Now they're doing English versions. In the past, they weren't even doing that. Now they're some of the most important and biggest acts in the world. This would never happen pre the digital age. It couldn't have happened.
No.
Right? And, you know, the boy bands of the era when I grew up in the music business, with the Backstreets, and I worked on NSYNC merely because it was an internal license and we were asked to do it as a favor at BMG. So I met Justin back in the day, did that first album. It had Tearing Up My Heart was the big hit, and there's another one I Want You Back, I think it was. It might be whatever the songs were. By the way, I had nothing to do with signing him. I just did a favor to my American company because we had a big boy band in the UK, and they put it out in the UK through Ariston. It failed, and then the head of BMG in the UK said, will you just do me a favor and just do a job on this? And I was like, yeah, I'll do a job on it. And little did we know that it was about to become the biggest superstars on the planet. But there was a lot of big English speaking acts.
Yeah.
Look at the way the Spanish acts
Yeah.
have now dominated. It's not just diaspora, it's the digital platforms allows this stuff to go around the world. And I know in my own new business, we're having hits everywhere, right? So the new setup is NWS with my partner Christian and Ben and Charlie, who are our partners as well in the company. We had South African #1 this week. We've had Nigerian #1s. We've had platinum records in Holland. We've had multi-platinum records in Latin America. In an office in London. By the way, we're going to have to open an office in America soon. It's just a guarantee because shit's too big. And we got this record with Imogen Heap at the minute that's been in the top 50 of US Spotify since the beginning of the year. And I think it's peaked at 32 in the US Spotify. It peaked at 60 in the world. We're through independent distribution on that record. And we're in independent, and we fund it ourselves. Pretty crazy.
Yeah.
So that shows you what you can do. But Imogen is proof in the pudding. I signed her in 2004, originally to Sony. She spent 20 years building an ecosystem. In fact, she spent time before that. She told me this morning at breakfast, she went on the road with a band called Urban Species. I didn't know that. She was friends with Jeff Beck and played with him and did stuff with him. I'm like, I didn't know that either, right? So this woman is Ariana Grande's favorite artist. She wrote with Taylor Swift. She's part of the modern ecosystem. But the reason this is working now and all of her catalog is working now, it's really simple. This is not an overnight success. And when people become superstars, there is the Malcolm Gladwell, I see we've got a Seth Godin book there, but there is a Malcolm Gladwell thing of 10,000 hours.
Outliers.
I agree with him.
I agree too.
I agree 100%.
Yeah.
Right? And I think in this modern age, the power, by the way, the other thing I'm going to say is a record label cannot take you to A to B. An independent record label, a major record label, because that's your job. Your job is to get from A to B. When you get to B, some labels are better at that stage. Some labels are better at D, E, F, further up the alphabet. I'm just making up so that everyone understands where I'm coming from. But A to B is on you, the artist. That might even be before the manager.
Yeah.
Then the manager comes in, says, yo, I noticed you've already got some fans, you've already got some music, you've already got an image, or look, that might be your fourth attempt. You know, whether it be Jay-Z back in the day, who'd been 8 years out there before he became Jay-Z that we know today, and Reasonable Doubt came along, or whether it be Sam, who got signed when he's 13 to an independent label, and then re-signed to me when he was 19 or 20. I can't remember exactly. I remember I think it must have been 20. He had a 21st birthday in May, I believed, in 2013. So I reckon, but he'd already been signed and put out music and had failed miserably, right? Beforehand. So when I got him, or them, they were already developed, went down one route, it didn't work. When we see the Chapel Roan thing, we look back at what she was before. when we look at all these artists, we look at Bruno Mars have been dropped, we look at, you got to go out there, the A to B and finding yourself, you have to do yourself. You have to have adversity. You have to learn this stuff. But in the digital age, you can create an account this week that you are this person, and you can take everything down and put new music up as a completely different, you can have the same name, but a different complete outlook.
Right.
You ever seen the early Post Malone stuff?
Yeah, of course.
I mean, that stuff does not look like Post Malone today.
Yeah, of course.
And Post Malone, the rapper, compared to the singy country stuff I'm hearing now, he even changed in front of my very eyes as a pop artist.
Right.
But now, you can do it. You don't need, by the way, when I joined the business, you have to go to a recording studio to make a record. And that would cost you $1,500 a day. And then you had to make vinyl or CDs, and you had to do a minimum run, and that cost you a couple of thousand. And then to make a video, because you needed a video, would cost you $5,000 to $10,000, right? And that's with all your friends helping you. It just cost, right?
Yeah.
I now say to kids when I go, I want to pay it forward. I've had a beautiful career, been very lucky. I'm building a new company. We have a thing called the NWS Academy. I want to encourage people to contact us because I'm looking for the young A&Rs of the future. The fact you haven't worked in a major, wonderful, because you're not, the system hasn't groomed you to be, or trained you to be a certain way. We have different mindset about how to do it.
And to be clear, not to stop the train of thought that you have there, to be clear, you are somebody who's been in the business for a very long time.
31 years.
31 years.
On the recording side.
On the recording side, on the major label side, you were also the president of Capitol Records UK from 2013 to 2021, so 8 years essentially.
At Universal, president at Universal from 2011.
2011. So you
and I also was I was the youngest ever president in the UK and replaced Rob Stringer, who's now the
did you?
Yeah, at Sony, Epic.
Okay,
Yeah. And that wasn't my first gig. I had my own label before that, which is where we signed Jay.
So this is right. Like, so you've signed, you signed 5 Seconds of Summer, you signed Sam Smith, you signed Jay-Z.
Yes.
You were the first person, like you originally signed, well, not originally signed Jay-Z, but you did the deal with him for the world.
Okay. 1996, I started a new label with Christian Tatsfield, the guy I now have NWS Music Group with. It was called Northwest Side then. It's now called Northwest Sound Recordings.
Oh,
that's why we kept the name.
Okay.
So that was the original version of Northwest Side.
Got you.
So on the first day in the office, we arrived early because we got thrown out of our old, when we said we were leaving, the old company said, no serve notice, leave today. We don't want you around. If you don't want to be here, leave. So we'd already had a deal set up with BMG, which they know, we told them that. And we get into BMG and they said, look, we don't have any space for you. So they said, can you go in the finance director's office? He's on holiday for 2 weeks. And we shared this one tiny office, which the finance director had. And Christian sat one side, I sat the other side, and we had one old-fashioned real phone.
Right.
And one computer. We didn't even turn the computer on. And the guy, the finance guy, always has the wackest stereo in the whole place.
Yeah, of course.
Because that guy doesn't even listen to this music, right?
No.
He's probably listening to the radio maybe while he's
AM shit, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So we had his thing, and Christian said to me, you got anything you want to sign? I said, yeah, I had this guy, Norman Cook, signed to me as a Mighty Dubcats, and his manager, Gary, had told me about a mix album they're doing on Boy George's label, More Protein, Boy George from Culture Club. And he's doing it as the Mighty Dubcat, as Fatboy Slim. And he does these breakbeat stuff. I said, and the stuff's ridiculously good. And he's talking about making an album of it. And I was like, and I know him already. I already have a relationship with the manager, have a relationship with the artist. And Norman had had loads of pseudonyms and been successful. Loads of #1 records in the UK. He'd been in the House Martins. He'd been Freak Power. All these things have been successful.
Yeah.
So this guy, and then he had Mighty Dubcats, so it was a hit all over Europe, and I picked up in the UK. And I was like, this guy's a repeat offender. We need to be in business with this guy.
I've never heard that before. That's good.
Yeah, I love that term. I told him about executives, managers. If they've done it more than once, hard enough to have one hit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Some, I'm very lucky. I've had a lot of hits. But you get a manager comes in who's had 2 or 3 over 2 or 3 decades. I'm like,
Yeah.
That guy knows something.
Yeah.
That woman knows something.
Yeah.
Doesn't just have to be a guy. So anyway, he said, yeah, okay, mate. We were the dance guys before, so we were known for being
Right.
dance. So Norman was like, oh, that fits in our thing.
Easy.
And I said, there's another thing that I always wanted to sign, but my boss had called. He called some random lawyer in New York. I don't want to say the guy's name. I haven't heard of the guy since, who was like the hip hop lawyer. And it's some American lawyer who tried to hustle and said, Leo, I can get you that Jay-Z project, but we want, you'd need to pay a minimum of $1 million. So what the guy was going to do was call Jay and Damon and say, yo, I got you $1 million, will you give me my 5%? It's like a hustle.
Yeah.
So my boss came back and said, look, my hip hop lawyer, you know, so London Records had things like Salt and Pepper and stuff, so they had a history in hip hop music. Little did I know, by the way, Payday, which was owned by London, run by London, Patrick Mox's label, had already dropped Jay over an argument in New York he had 2 singles, Dead Presidents on one side and Ain't No You Know What was on the other side. And they made a video for Dead Presidents. I believe a lot of this stuff I'm getting wrong, so I apologize to all the Jay-Z purists saying, he got it wrong. But they made a video for the A side and the B side blew up in the clubs. It was like the hottest song on the East Club.
Yeah.
Dead Presidents on the A, which used the same sample as Nas.
Right.
And on the B side was Ain't No, which was just an incredible record. Dum, 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 dum.
Ain't No
dum,
what?
dum, dum, dum. No, trust me. No one needs to hear me say that word. You can listen to the record. Okay, so
Great record.
What a
by
great
the way.
record. I mean, a mind-blowingly good record.
Yeah.
And by the way, Jay's a genius. Let's be real.
But to be clear, at that time, nobody wanted to sign him.
No one wanted to go near him. So that's why 2 guys in London, when we called up, so then I was with Christian in this office, and there's like Fatboy Slim or Jay-Z, Fatboy Slim, and he said, you and I have only done dance music. Like, well, that's what our reputation's for. This album's ridiculous because we were playing the tracks off it. He Can't Knock the Hustle.
Yes.
And then, which Melissa Morgan and the Mary J version.
Yes.
I love Ain't No. And I loved the whole album, right? I just thought the album was just genius.
Yeah.
So I was looking at the cover. Christian was looking at the cover because I had both CDs. And he said, Freeze. You know the Freeze lot. That's Todd Terry's, the label Todd Terry comes from. And I went, Will Sokoloff, because I used to deal in dance. And I said, I never noticed that before. So I had Will's number in, don't laugh, address book. There was my mobile phone didn't have a contact.
Sure.
I opened the address book, I called Will. Will said to me, yo, I'll introduce you to these guys. I'm having problems. And I said, what's the problems? He said, well, in the old retail days, the records go from the distributor, from the label to the distributor, from the distributor to the stores. And each of them have a period in which to pay. So let's say the payment terms were 90 days from the store to the distributor and 60 days or 30 days from distributor to the label. So by the time they got paid 90 days, let's say it's 30 days, 4 months to get your money.
Right.
So you bought a copy in wherever you were at the time. By the time Rockefeller got their money, but at the same time, the record was moving up the Billboard chart.
Right.
So they want to spend more and more money marketing. But Will had a cash flow problem.
Okay.
The money wasn't coming in quick enough to spend the money on marketing.
I see. Okay.
That's my recollection of the conversation. Again, this is a long time ago.
Yeah.
So he's like, yo, Nick, take the number, call the guys. If you can make a deal, make a deal. I just started a new label at BMG with Christian. So literally, this guy, Christian and I just sat there. We're sat opposite each other. I made a call. We're like, yeah, give me that. I was going to number, 917, whatever the area code, or 212 to their office. And I put the phone down without even missing a beat. Boom, pick the phone up. 201, Damon Dash. Okay, what's his name again? Damon Dash. Okay, cool. Don't laugh. Swear to you, so I don't want to seem like, I think I called him JZ on the first call.
Sure.
Because I'm English,
Canadian,
right?
Canadians as well.
Yeah,
too.
exactly,
We do the same
so
thing.
I called out, I said, Damon. He said, yes, and my name's Nick Raphael. I went and I came through, the lady picked up and she said, oh, what's her name? There was a lady, I can't remember her name, she was really lovely. I think she worked with them for years. And she picked up, she's like, who are you? I said, and I made it sound bigger than I was. I said, my name's Nick Raphael. I've got a label with BMG in Europe. I didn't want to say the UK.
Yeah, you had to do what you had to do.
I was
to make
hustling.
it seem like,
I was hustling.
For sure.
We didn't have a marketing department yet, it was 2 of us.
Yeah.
So they put me through, and Damon took the call, and he said, "What's up?" So yeah, BMG. So you know BMG. So you know, they got Puffy, and they got Bad Boy Records, and they got Arista with Clive with LA Reid's label, LaFace. And he was like, yeah, I know who BMG is. I said, yeah. I said, we're interested in making a deal on the J project and JZ project. And he said, man, when can you get to New York? We were two young executives. We were like, tomorrow? He was like, really? I was like, yeah. So he said, cool, meet us tomorrow. So we literally left the corridor, went to the boss, who was like the UK chairman, Jeremy, and we said, can we book 2 tickets to go to New York? We want to sign this artist. And he's like, go. He just like, just go.
Okay.
So we got on the plane. We flew to New York. They had an office down in Wall Street. We go and meet them. Jay was sat on the radiator looking at radio play charts and which territories he should go into. He was impressive from day one. Damon was there, being Damon, being loud, being whatever. They met us. The album had just gone gold in America after 13 weeks. So it was already successful.
Yeah.
But all the American A&Rs had said, yo, this guy's 8 years out there. He ain't the real deal. He's got a weird flow. They all had an opinion.
Right.
We were just like, the record is a hit. It's got smashes on it. We'd called all the record shops that we could call and say, how's the import going? They're like, yo, this is the hottest import. So we're like, we just want to sign it.
Yeah.
So we went and we had dinner with them. There's lots of conversation. I don't want to go into the details of the conversation, but we had lots of conversation.
Sure.
And they said, yeah, we'll make a deal. So we made a deal, had a structure where we could have the world outside America, and then we had an option on America, but with a larger sum of money. A really decent large sum of money, but it was for Rockefeller label. And they already told us they had this DJ Clue and Memphis Bleak album coming soon.
Yeah.
Which both did well. One did gold and one did platinum.
Right.
So I said, cool. So I'm thinking, great. So I came back to London. We literally went back to London. I remember stayed at Soho Grand Hotel. I remember going to an Italian restaurant. I remember in my head, they had a white 190E Mercedes, the lowest Mercedes at the time. They had a Rockefeller logo on it. Jay would sit in the front and hand out free CDs as they drove along the streets of New York. Damon drove. I think Biggs was with them, Biggs Kareem. That's my recollection. We went to the office. I think Al Branch was there. I think Hip Hop might have been there. Can't remember. Al Branch, definitely I remember. Colleen was the lady who looked after them.
Okay.
She was lovely. And I remember this crew. I came back to London. We made the offer. We'd already discussed it, so it wasn't like a negotiation. The negotiation happened there. They're cool. And then we had a time frame in which our American labels had to make the deal. So I remember calling head of Arista, calling the head of RCA, calling the head of Black Music at RCA, Kevin Evans. I remember calling the head of Pete Jones, who's head of distribution for BMG. And they all said,
go for it.
No, they all said no.
But you had to do the deal with them?
I had to, as a UK label, I had to get them to commit to release.
Oh, in America.
I could pay the money. Yeah. I could pay the money.
And they all said no.
And they all said, no, we're just not feeling this.
That's crazy.
I was like, you're crazy. The minute our period ended, Def Jam, Columbia, and I think Interscope were all trying to close a deal with him.
Yeah.
Because the record was carrying on climbing the chart.
Of course.
And we were like, how did that, by the way, this is the digital changes that. I don't have to kiss the arse of American record execs and say, please work my record in America.
Right.
Because if it's doing that sort of business,
it's going to do it anyway.
It's going to do it anyway. So at this stage, unfortunately at the time, but listen, life worked out brilliantly. Jay became a megastar and a billionaire and is one of the greatest talents of all time.
Mm-hmm.
And to me is one of the goats of rap music and will always be. Okay.
Yeah, for me too.
Okay, cool.
No, that's my goat.
Okay.
Easily will say that.
And we did the first 3 albums everywhere outside America. First time I met Leo, because Leo had the license eventually for America. First time I met Todd Markowitz, because he was the business affairs for Def Jam in New York.
Right.
I met all these people. I met Steve Stout, because Trackmasters did an extra track for us on one of the album. I met the whole world of rap music from London. And then my boss came in, which was Richard Griffiths, who later became a very good friend of mine, and he managed 5 Seconds of Summer, he managed Ollie Murs, which I did with him, JLS, which I did with him, and Lamar. I did 4 acts with him,
Tough
and
guy
everyone
here.
was
Fair.
very tough.
Yeah.
but I adore him and I've got nothing but love and respect for him. He turned up and went, these guys got the wackest rapper and their boy band is never going to work. The boy band's second single went to #1, sold 1 million albums, and the rapper is Jay-Z.
Yeah.
And the minute Jay-Z released Hard Knock Life, my boy band had a #1. All of a sudden he's like, these guys are the greatest.
I always knew it.
I always knew it. And by the way, he's been brilliant for me ever since. And it shows you show business, just have one hit and everything changes.
But did you have Hard Knock Life? You had all those albums?
I had Reasonable Doubt, In My Lifetime Volume 1, In My Lifetime Volume 2 for 20 years. 10 years plus an extra 10.
Oh, wow.
And by the way, that's when people get all like crazy on me, like, oh, I don't want to do this term. It doesn't matter to Jay has got everything now.
Yeah.
And he's a 50-something-year-old man. He owns his entire catalogue.
Yeah.
Great. But 20 years, all the record labels got to make money. But who made the most money out of the whole project? Him.
Yeah.
He became a billionaire because he's a genius,
Yeah.
right? So when everyone gets like all twisted on me, yeah, I want to do the shortest deal ever. I'm like, look, Riri, Kanye, Jay, Dr. Dre, all these artists, 50, I don't know how much 50 Cent's worth, but very wealthy man as well. These really wealthy artists all made their money by being a name in music and using their branding.
Leveraging it to build other verticals.
And Steve Stout's book,
Tanning of America.
Tanning of America, what an incredible book.
Yeah.
But how they turned black artists into product endorsers who owned a piece of the company.
Right.
It's genius, right? Genius. And I feel that Steve was instrumental in this whole process. But you also had some of the great minds, Obviously, there's other issues for the moment. But Diddy is a genius in terms of marketing and music, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of course, there's other stuff.
Sure.
Jay is a genius, right? Dr. Dre beats with Jimmy, genius. These things are genius, right?
Yeah.
But what they did was look, we just lost the incredible boxer, George Foreman.
Mm-hmm.
But he leveraged his celebrity to make the
George Foreman grill.
The George Foreman grill. And I watched the whole thing on it the other day, him talking about it on a TV show years ago. He made more money from the grill than he made from
boxing.
They say Paul Newman would have made more. He gave the money away, didn't he, from the sauces, and he gave it to charity, I think. But Paul Newman as well, the actor.
Yeah.
He had a sauce range, like a salad dressing range.
Oh, did he?
And he made more money from the dressings than he did from his acting career. But I think he gave it all away. I might be wrong.
That's hilarious. I never put two and two together. The Paul Newman that dressing is his.
Record labels.
Yeah.
Not only make your music successful, they make you as a brand name.
Yeah.
I was just looking how much the biggest Instagram people and some of the musicians, so you've got people like Ariana on there and you've got Justin Bieber on there, but also you've got things like Ronaldo and Messi from football, and how much, and Kardashian and everything else, how much they can charge per post on Instagram.
Right.
It's like north of $2 million to a brand. The record label, so I watch your podcast, I listen to your podcast, especially when friends are on, but like Lex, I've got nothing but respect for the guy. I met him when he was working at Universal. You knew him when Universal in Canada. He's recently helped me out one of my Latin records. He introduced me to the head of Latin music at Spotify, who supported it, and the record's now 7 or 8 times platinum Kiki. Brilliant artist and a wonderful record. Tango Unplanned, which I'm really proud of, is one of our records on our label. And he said, manager deserves 50-50. I'm not a manager. I know it's the manager's playbook. I know that's what you guys do. But I'm not mad at him for saying it. Because if you come along and you're a nobody, and this guy helps you go from a nobody to one of the most famous people on the planet, he's gone on a journey. He's believed in you when no one else believes, and you can get fired in a heartbeat on your 20%. I'm not mad. I understand why he's calling on the 50%.
Yeah.
But I got a madder thought. People are rude about record labels.
It's the same thing, the concept with the record labels, right? What you're saying is, listen, you might not get the fairest deal, but at the end of the day, maybe, or let's say it's not the fairest deal, you might not think that, but...
You're wrong. Because they've got the expertise.
Right.
They've got the know-how. They've got the offices in all the countries in the world. When you come and work with my new label, let's start with majors. You go and work with a major. There are great people in all majors. There are great people. There are also bad people. There's bad people in every walk of life.
It's just easy to bucket them all as bad.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But Taylor Swift goes through a major.
Mm-hmm.
Drake goes through a major, right? They might have different deals along the way, and they might be signed via this company and that company, but they go through a major.
Mm-hmm.
Beyonce goes through a major. Jay-Z came through majors. Now, as we have this stuff now and the digitization, there may be other ways to do it. But these other ways involve people with expertise.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not a major anymore. I have a distribution deal with the incredible Virgin, and I respect them and I love them, and I think Jacqueline and the whole team there are incredible.
Mm-hmm.
And they bring skills to the party. It's not surprising when they break the Rema record. It's not surprising when they break the David Kushner record. It's not surprising because these are the A-list people. They're top quality in my opinion,
Mm-hmm.
okay? No artist is a success on their own.
Absolutely not.
And I have this concentric circle theory.
Okay.
In the middle is who?
Artist.
In the next circle is who?
Manager.
Agreed. As you require more, agent,
PR.
merchandise, but
Merch, yeah.
you need people who've done it before. Now, some of your people are going to be fresh and they're going to give energy.
Yeah.
But you're going to need people in the seat.
Who know what they're doing.
When you want to do your first tour.
Lawyer.
The lawyer. Oh my God, the lawyer's so important.
Zach Katz always talked to me. The first time I ever met with Zach Katz, Zach Katz said, amazing. He's going to do the pod as well. Bring him up. He comes up every second pod.
I love it.
Yeah. And he told me, he's like, 5 seats at the table are the most important, and you need your record label, publisher, agent. This is 2015, and your manager, along those lines. But he very much said, this is what you need.
Do you want to go back to Richard Griffiths?
Let's go.
He wrote a note to Bob Lepvetz. I'm going to say his name wrong if I apologize. Who has the letter. And he said, these are the requirements to be a successful artist. I've got my version. His version I printed off, I framed it, and I have it in my office.
Okay.
Okay?
Send me a photo of that, by the way.
I will. Number one. Okay. How important is talent in your list?
In my list?
Yeah.
Personally?
Yeah.
Incredibly high.
Nope.
Well,
I'll tell you why.
Well, hold on. No. I'll tell you.
Right.
For me, it's incredibly high, but I don't think it is this. But the highest on my list is work ethic.
Cool. By the way, I'm going to say work ethic's up there, but it's one above that. Likability. Now, you could have the best work ethic in the world, and you could have the most talent in the world, but if you are an unlikable human being, for whatever reason, no one's going to buy into you.
Yeah.
If you're someone who's got a slight sneer, or you're a little bit you've got an awkward way about you, you might end up being an incredible producer or a studio musician or whatever, but you're not the guy or girl who's going to be on Instagram, right, or TikTok, and people going, I love them. I love what they're about. I love how weird they are. I love how this they are, that they are. You have to have likability. Now, I reference an artist, okay, who I think is amazing. I love her. I was in love with her as a teenage boy. She is a mega star of modern music. Where would Madonna finish in a singing competition? Now, let's go back to likability.
Fair point.
Her likability is clearly, by her success, huge.
Yeah.
And she kept a narrative and interest. Her work ethic was 11. Work ethic, likability, manager. Because if your manager is a douche, no one is going to want to do business with them.
I wrote that quote down. You said that yourself. If your manager is a douche, even if you are likable, I am not in. You won't sign him.
I won't sign him. Because you imagine, Richard Griffiths, I adore. Harry McGee, I adore. I've worked with these guys for years, right? Richard and I and Harry normally have a dinner once a year that has nothing to do with work. And I hear old war stories, stuff that happened during the year. None of that stuff would ever get repeated. And we laugh out loud. And there are times in the year where Richard will call up, when I was working with him, scream the place down, make my life a misery on behalf of his artists. We were friends.
Yeah.
We are friends.
Yeah.
But when he had to go to war with me for his artist, he went to war. But if I had to go to a concert and spend the evening and have a meal afterwards and everything else, I look forward to it. There are other times I didn't look forward to it as much. Jack and Sam, who managed Sam Smith and Disclosure and Jimmy Napes, I look forward to being in their presence.
Why is that?
Because they are bright, affable, interesting. These days I learn a lot from them. In those days they just asked me a million questions because I was like the old man in the situation. But they brought a warmth. I invited them to live in my office. When we did Sam Smith, they ran their business on 3 desks in my office. And David Joseph, who ran Universal, I said, can I have permission? I've got 15 desks. I've got 8 staff, or we end up with 10. So we had all those mega hits with 10 staff. You don't need 400 staff. We had a small roster, and wow, we were successful.
Yeah.
And the boys would work in my office, and every day I saw them. When we had to make a decision on something, can we make a decision on this? Can we get an answer on that? They were just
they're
there.
right there.
They were there.
They're right there.
And then they were like, what do you reckon about this? What about this for our agent? What about for this, for this? What about this?
That's the best.
Right?
That's the best kind of situation you want to have. That type of closeness.
Let me
there.
go back to it.
Yeah.
Teamwork.
Yeah.
You will not become a global star without a team. Now, that team may be an independent distributor, maybe a major distributor, maybe a major label. But you need, when you come out as a new artist and your friend is your manager, your best friend from college, someone who worked in a studio over the years or might be an artist themselves, they're bringing some stuff. They might be your person you go to for listening and being good to you and am I being unreasonable here?
Mm-hmm.
But you also need someone who's going to say, guys, I've been in this situation before, stay calm.
Yeah.
Because it takes a minute.
Mm-hmm.
Don't think this is going to happen overnight. Look at this
that
is
friend,
the game.
That friend could become a very successful manager, and they're the best for you. But if you don't have those mentors or those individuals who have great experience like yourself, you could spin in circles and never get to the place you were supposed to be.
Look how lucky I was. My first ever job, Roger Ames was the owner of London Records and the chairman of Polygram, right? Roger is a legend. He's a genius. He later ran Warner's, he ran the... To this day, I go to him for advice. The next job, I went to BMG, and I get to work, and Clive picked up one of my acts from America. Clive Davis, my hero. I've read every book, everything about him. Wow. Lifelong, still to this day, I can send him an email, he'll respond, incredible.
Amazing.
I get to sit at the table with Clive Davis. And I meet Pete Edge in that process, who I've got huge respect for, because he worked for Clive at the time. It was amazing. And Ashley Newton, who I was a fan of from the UK, was then in the US. Another guy I adore. He signed the Spice Girls. He worked with the Foo Fighters. He was brilliant. He did Imogen Heap with me the first time around in 2004. The man is a top executive. Then I go to Sony and I replace Rob Stringer, who becomes global chairman. The man is immaculate as an executive. He busted my balls on a daily basis. He fight with me tooth and nail. And one time I said to him, why do you fight with me and not the others, like some of the others? And you know what he said to me? Because we both love soccer. And he said, when you got a really talented player in the team and he has a good game, that's not enough from the really talented player. You want him to have a great game. Don't come in here and tell me you had a good game, because I'm not judging you on good. I want you to be great. And I hated him for it at the time. He made me a better executive. He made me better. And God, I have fought with him. And then Lucian, who tried to hire me when I went to work for Rob, eventually gets me with a guy called David Joseph to come to Universal with a girl called Jo who worked with me at the time. And we set up London, it becomes what's name. So now I'm in the system, and then they hire this guy who in 2001 I met, who was head of international in Epic, Steve Barnett, and they hire him to be head of Capitol in the US. Steve was my buddy. He's the guy who used to call me up and tell me to sell Anastasia records when I was running a UK company.
Okay.
And he said, Nick, Capitol US at the moment has no A&R people. You've signed 5 Seconds from Richard, who's his best friend. So I'll release it in America. I got you. And I said, I've got this other act. And he said, yeah, let's do one at a time. And then about 4 months later, his whole A&R team, or actually 3 people, Wendy, I think it was, Dan, I'm going to forget his name, it's terrible, I must remember his name. He was a brilliant publisher. He was head of A&R at the time at Capitol. He left shortly afterwards. And someone else, Curtis Postel, I think. 3 of them. I'm going to remember Dan's name in a minute. It's going to kill me. And they went to see Sam in New York.
Yeah.
And they called Steve and said, look, the UK company got this artist. He's on the Disclosure record. He just played a show in New York. He's game changer. Steve called me and said, yo, what about this other artist? I said, I tried to. He said, one at a time. He said, I need to come see it. So he came to London, saw Sam at Islington Town Hall. And he said to me, I'm doing it. 2 songs in, he said, this guy's going to, he said, points his finger in my face. He's an older man. He's a bit younger than my father. And he said to me, Nick, this guy's going to change your and my life. I said, really? He said, yeah. He went downstairs and he'd done Adele in America with Rob. And he said to me, and Adele's guitarist, Ben Thomas, was playing with Sam that night. And he walked into the changing room and he said to Sam, I'm going to put you on Capitol in the US. That's where I want you to go. Trust me, it's the right place. And I'm going to do for you what I did for Adele. I'm going to tell the whole world you're going to be the biggest star. And trust me, it's going to happen. Came out the meet thing. I waited a second. Steve walked out. Sam said to Ben Thomas, is this guy for real? And he said, well, I met him on the Adele project. He said to me, tell him yeah. So I went in the corridor, said to his managers, do you want to go and have a quick word with Sam? He went in there, managers came out, said, Steve, we're going to do it with you. He's like, cool.
Nice.
And Steve went out and told the world, Sam's the next most important artist. He's the most important artist I've worked with since Adele. Because he finished, Adele had been broken by the time he'd come to thing. This guy, these people changed my life. Rob, Lucian, Steve, Clive. Clive taught me to do A&R. He didn't sit in a room and teach me to do A&R. I read everything he'd ever done.
Yeah.
And then when I got a chance to sit with him and hang with him, I bust his balls. What about this? What about that? Who do you use for this? What did you do for that? He must have thought, this kid's so annoying.
No, I probably love that.
Right? But the reality is, you need that experience. Now I can sit in a room and talk on your podcast and talk about stuff because, I achieved, and I still will achieve, and I'll continue to achieve some incredible things.
Yeah.
But I didn't do it because I was a clever kid. I did it because I always thought someone knew more than me. And I was looking for all those people like, I know about you, I've heard about you. I remember meeting Lamont Dozier. When I grew up, I had to clean my parents' cars. I'm ranting, by the way. But when I got up, I used to clean my parents' cars. And they had the Motown Story. It was a 3 cassette or 4 cassette thing. And Lionel was the voiceover. I think Smokey was as well. And they voiceovered some of it and talked about between the records, and this happened and that happened, and this happened, and da-da-da-da. And the reason Marvin Gaye came out is because he was married to Berry's sister, and he never wanted to release what's going on, and he had a view on it, and it's in the book that Berry wrote, and it's all these things, amazing. And I did it. And I kept hearing Lamont Dozier and Norman Whitfield. By the way, Norman Whitfield's still my favourite producer of all time.
Yeah.
And he produced, in my opinion, one of the first rap records. People moving out, people moving in. Why? Because of the colour of the skin. Run, run, run. So it's just unbelievable. Ball of Confusion. What a record. It still sounds fresh today. And he produced things like Wishing on a Star, and he produced Rolls Royce and all this sort of stuff. And he produced War by Edwin Starr. I mean, the guy's a genius. Anyway, I get to meet Lamont Dozier doing an artist called Lamar. And Lamar called me up and said, who's this old guy I got to work with? I said, you're working with him. The truth was, when the demos were ready from the session, I went over there on my own to hear the demos. I spent 4 hours just asking him about making records, how he did it, the inspiration. Because I'd only heard, I was cleaning cars, I was 7, 8, 9 years old. I was like, who is Lamont Dozier?
Yeah.
Holland Dozier and Holland.
Yeah.
Who is Norman Whitfield? I met Gwen Dickey later on. I just asked a million questions about Norman. I wanted to know.
I'm the same way. And this is a very important reason as to why I have the Manager's Playbook, because I get to sit in front of people like you and just ask all these kinds of questions.
Yeah.
When I went to London for the first time.
Yeah.
One of the very first times, I actually remember going into the building Universal.
Yeah.
I remember seeing all the labels there, and
Yeah.
I thought to myself, "Where's Capital?" Met with David Joseph, and I asked him that same question. I said, I noticed that Capital's not in this building. David Joseph, cross-legged or however he sat, you know. He's like, "Oh, they do their own thing. They're not in this building with us."
I did.
What's that?
I did.
And so explain to me, what was it that, how did you guys operate? Because you had such a high level of success. Not only success for the UK, but like success for the world.
I got into a load of trouble when I was at Sony. Sony, when I got there, was going through a change.
Yeah.
I think a guy called Rick Dobbis brought in Boston Consulting or one of the big McKinseys or whoever it was. And they went around the world, and I think he was head outside America to look at how to evolve and change the company.
Yeah.
And they got the statistics on all the people who did A&R. And we had two incredible A&R people, Muff Winwood and Lincoln Elias. And they've been involved in everything from Sade through to The Clash, through to Jamiroquai, Terence Trent D'Arby. I mean, they were just, they're genius A&R people. So they had thing, and by the way, I'd copied them. I'll get back to that in a minute. I'll get all the way back to the story. And they came in, and each of us who was senior, either a president or was like high up in A&R, would have to meet with these guys. These guys were so square, but they'd come to the meeting, they'd put their tie in their pocket, they'd wear their shirt and put their jacket on top of their bag. And they came in and they'd have like those yellow lawyer notepads.
Yeah.
And they had a list of questions. And I sat behind my desk and they came in, two guys and a woman, and they said, "We've looked at the statistics and it seems to be you have a 3-in-1 success ratio in terms of profitability in your artists." I said, "Yeah, 3-in-1 of my artists go platinum or multi-platinum." Pardon?
When you were at
Epic. No, and I think it had also, maybe it had gone back, or definitely when I was at Epic, I had this mad run from 2003 to 2011.
Yeah.
We released 11 artists and had 20 platinum or multi-platinum
Gotcha.
albums.
Gotcha.
It was insane, across multiple
Yeah.
genres.
Yeah.
And they sat with me and they said, "How do you have a track record like this?" And the industry as a whole has a track record of 98 to 100 or 99 to 100. Fail to the one success. And I said, "Well, let me start by just telling you there's a single word, focus." And they said, yeah, blah, 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 blah. I said, well, no. I'm telling you, the secret of success for me has been focus. I said, I sign 2 artists a year and I break one every 18 months in this current pattern. I said, but 2 out of 3 fail and 1 out of 3 works. But on the 2 out of 3 that fail, I get out early. I see the signs, I see the problems.
You get out early.
I get out early. If that makes me a bad person, I'm sorry. By the way, if it's not working or the person doesn't like how we roll, let's not get crazy on each other.
Yeah.
Let's pay you the money. Thanks. Good night. Move on. No, there's no drama. There's
Simple
no
as that.
personal. And also, what's the worst thing? You've been a manager. An artist gets sat on a label 2-3 years. The label's got no ideas. The artist loses their confidence.
Yep.
And they're just sat on the label.
Mm-hmm.
They're just dying at home.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So my attitude is, no, not working, get out.
No, artists are thankful for that
Yeah,
at this
and
point.
by the way,
It's just not working.
I believe that. By the way, one of the things I've been accused of over the years is they laugh, just calling Andrew Gould, who's a good friend of mine, who's a publisher, runs Rock Nation Publishing. He said the best thing about when he said to someone else, when you see Nick Raphael, you get a yes or no in the room. You never leave the meeting going, is he going to cut that song? Not going to cut that song? It's like, I'm cutting that song, let's make a deal, or dude, go and play it to someone else. I'm not interested.
Back to the focus.
Back to focus. Get things off your desk, get it done. And when you have a winner, double, treble, quadruple down. Spend the money. Focus, go for it.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, guys, the word is focus. And I tried to explain it nicely, and they kept asking me questions. And I was like, dude, I signed 2 things a year. How many executives sign 2 things a year max? I didn't have loads of A&R people. I had one brilliant A&R person, Jo Charrington, who worked for me for years, who was a manager who I hired in, and she'd managed one of my boy bands, and she met me. She was an assistant at London Records. She's one of the characters in Kill Your Friends. Don't want to go through the whole book, because if you haven't read the book, read it, by John Niven. It's an incredible book.
Okay.
It's like a comic thing of being in a record company. Don't watch the film, it's terrible. Anyway, I said, let's focus. Two days after I do the meeting, get a call from Paul Berger, and he said, Rick Dobbis's office has called and says, you were really arrogant to the people. I said, I give you my word. The last thing I was arrogant. They asked me the secret sauce. I shouldn't tell my secret sauce. And I told them, it's focus.
Mm.
And he said, you know, you just kept saying focus. And I kept saying,
Yeah.
yeah, baby, it's focus. That's what I do. And I worked at London Records. It was a small record label when I first started.
So did you get let go from when that happened? And
No.
Okay.
I got beat up.
okay.
Verbally beat up. Listen,
Sure.
you got to play. By the way, I think Rick, if I'm not wrong, and I think it's a brilliant, famous, legendary executive, he left not long after they gave their report in. Some of the times when you bring in management consultants, the person who brings them in normally gets fired.
Right.
I see a lot of places.
Yeah.
Because their bosses say, why are we hiring you if you're asking someone outside?
I've heard that, yeah.
Right. I'm just saying that from a holistic point of view. I don't know if that's true, but that's my understanding. So I got in trouble for that. My view of the music business was from London Records, where it was a small company punching above its weight. It had global success with stuff, had Fine Young Cannibals, had Salt and Pepper, had really interesting, successful stuff.
Mm-hmm.
There were other record labels that I saw within the Universal system that had tiny staffs, tiny rosters, and they would do, like my friend Ferdy worked with a guy called Andy McDonald's. They had a record label called Go Dis and Go Beat.
Freddie Younger?
Yeah, amazing executive. One
Great.
of I think he's world class.
Where's he at now?
He has his own company.
Okay.
And he goes through Virgin, Promised Land. But he signed Gabrielle and Portishead, and Portishead became massive. And I was like, they're a small company. They have a way of success.
Yeah.
And then Andy had things like the House Martins and Beautiful South and a bunch of stuff on their label that was on a small thing. Then the next other big person in the record business at the time was Simon Cowell. He later came through, and I saw him firsthand. I was at BMG, and there was like Simon, Sonny, Vanya as an assistant. They're the tiniest team. Mm-hmm. They were having bigger hits than everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And then I saw Lincoln and Muff, and they had S2 with a team of about 6 people, and they had Terence Trent D'Arby, and they had Jamiroquai, and had all these other things. I was like, yo, they all had a couple of things in common. No international repertoire, no catalogue, small roster, small staff. If you have that setup, you have to have success to stay in business.
Right.
Necessity is a motherfucker. You don't eat unless you kill.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have a big label with a big roster and loads of A&R people, and you're going to make your budget, whether you open the doors or not, because Beyonce, Drake, Taylor Swift, comes, the incentive to break a new artist is less.
Right.
So look at the setups at the minute doing incredibly well. Unbelievable. Ireland doing incredibly. Those guys are doing incredibly. Mercury, incredible. But they don't have a bunch of international repertoire. They come into the office every day. You work with David Massey, who's a brilliant executive, right?
He's great.
And I work with him at Sony. But he does well because he likes to pick up stuff from around the world. He's slightly different. But he's still a great... Because you have to find stuff to justify the reason you're in the company. Mm-hmm. These bigger companies will have an A&R staff of 100, 200 people, right? And they're signing all the time just to stay in the job and be busy. Mm-hmm. I'm making 1 album, 2 albums at a time, max. Maybe sometimes 3 or 4. But guess what? When we were at Capitol, we had this run that was incredible. Sam, which we all know, one of the greatest,
You took that same process and applied it to Capitol, essentially.
So I took it to everything.
To everything.
When we had the label Epic, was originally a big label, and when they closed me down, I created a company called White Rabbit that traded as Epic, and we had 8 staff, 10 staff.
How big was the staff at Capitol?
10.
Wow.
Yeah, 10 people, and we had 5 Seconds, 3 US #1 albums. Sam, we know what happened. And then we had Liam Payne, RIP, and I'm awful, terrible. But we had a #1 with Republic in America. We stripped that down with Quavo. And we had a bunch of other stuff you weren't even heard of that was also successful. We had the first 3 years with just grind. We had nothing. And then we had like 7 years of unbridled success, like huge.
So can you take me through what those 3 years were like? Because you
What,
were
the failure?
Yeah.
Oh, it was awful. I had a nervous
Let's
breakdown.
talk about that, because I think it's important to talk about that failure.
Oh, awful. This happened to me multiple times in my career.
Okay.
Where you start something new
Yeah.
and you lose, like an artist, like a manager, you lose confidence. Shit, maybe I had my best moments.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm never going to have them again. And you're trying to find a hit and you lose your mojo, you lose your feel for a minute, and you have to like go, shut out the noise, get my head down. When came off Sony, we had, like I said, between 2003 and 2011, 20 platinum or multi-platinum albums by 11 artists. Just insane, just unprecedented. And big, like UK alone, some of these albums were doing 1.6, 1.8 million copies.
Platinum in the US.
Platinum in the US. It's only 300 to be platinum in the UK. And I was having albums do crazy amounts.
Yeah.
Physical.
Yeah.
This is not streaming and downloads, this is physical.
Yeah.
So we were doing disproportionately successfully.
All right.
I felt that we weren't doing as well internationally as I wanted to do. Ironically, the last two things I did, Troublemaker by Ollie Murs, number 17 in the Billboard Hot 100, top 10 in the top 40 radio in America, was one of my last hits there. I was lucky I was still the publisher afterwards, privately. And then I had this project by 3 Catholic priests I made at the Vatican, mad story. There's a documentary about it now on the BBC iPlayer. And that sold 1.6 million in the first 8 weeks. And over the first three albums.
Hold on, did I hear that right? Did you say you made a record with 3 Catholic priests at the Vatican?
Yes, 100%. There's a document. We can get back to that.
Yeah, okay. I'm
So they were the last. They were the two internationally successful.
So I was curious to know.
I've got some hookups there. Anyway, weird, isn't it? A Jewish executive from London has a hookup with the Vatican. Okay, let's not even go there.
All right.
So I left publicly. I loved Sony. I would happily have gone back there. I loved Rob. He was a mentor and a boss and a tough boss. But he
I spent some time with him.
He's a great executive. And Lucian had been courting me for years. He caught me in the time before Rob. And I eventually said, you know what? My peer group, like you talk about Darkus, Ferdy and these people, had success in the Universal thing with albums and artists I thought weren't as good as mine.
Interesting. Okay.
And I thought Universal seemed, in my opinion, at that point, better a breaking product. When I joined Sony, it was legendary for Sony breaking UK artists around the world. You know, from Sade,
right.
Even Bewitched worked in America, Charlotte Church to work in America. The UK was good at breaking around the world. Over the time, after the merger of the BMG, in my opinion, it was harder and harder to get my material released around the world. Pre-digital, you had to ask each territory.
Sure.
And I felt that I was having disproportionate success, and I felt that I was getting, that was my view.
Okay.
So I left, and on the promise from Lucian that I would get a look in, he said, because it's a meritocracy and that's how it works. By the way, I love both companies. I wouldn't have been the success that Universal was if I hadn't been at Sony. I wouldn't have got better as an executive if I hadn't worked for Rob. And I get to Sony and I publicly say in Music Week, which is the Billboard of the UK, I loved everyone at Sony, but the only reason I came here is to have international hits. Like I made it like almost like tell everyone I'm going to lose weight, tell everyone I'm going to run a marathon. So I do.
Yeah.
And I tell the world I'm going to be this internationally successful executive. And then Joe and I leave.
A lot of balls.
And we don't have a hit from 2011 until 2014.
Yeah.
So 2.5 years, not one hit. Then we come out the blocks with our first number one.
What do you think went wrong?
Nothing.
Or what do you think was taking it so long to figure out?
You've got to sign the artist. You've got to find the artist, sign the artist, develop the artist, and put the records out.
Because you're starting at net zero.
I started at zero. I got their checkbook,
Yeah.
their support,
Yeah.
but I don't have a roster.
Yeah.
I don't have any international repertoire. Don't have any catalogue. And Joe kept saying to me, Nick, it's going to take 3 years. And I said, I am not ready for it. And by the way, we were coming off number one after number one after number one. So I'm like, I'm used to being number one.
Yeah.
You can't tell me I got to start. And in 2013, I got very ill with a hypothyroidism caused by a virus. So basically, the guy said my nervous system shut down. So it's a nervous breakdown. You get like a little flu, and it should go in 2 days, and it then attacks another part of the body. It attacked my thyroid. And I got really sick. You know how I got better? I had some really big hits in 2014. Took a year of feeling sorry for myself and being
like
sick.
A true exec right
I
there.
realized, trust me, I know the power of a hit.
Yeah.
It's a drug and it hit me.
Yeah.
And I got really ill. And then when everything went crazy and Five Sauce went to number one in America on the album and Sound went to number two and the single went to number two, and it was like, we're going to have that amazing year. And then the Grammy get announced, and very, very nicely, Steve very magnanimously told Dennis and those guys, you should interview Nick because it's really been his year. And they interviewed me, and I said I had a nervous breakdown in 2013. I was real. That's what happened. And a couple of American execs called me and said, bro, you don't tell them the weakness. You don't show the vulnerability. You're the man.
Right.
And I said, there's no arc to my story if I'm just the man. I came out of Sony where I was treated like a king. I was paid like a king. I loved the teams there. I get to Universal and I couldn't find a hit for 2.5 years, and then boom, it goes. And I was vindicated. But my stupid big mouth had told everyone at the door, I'm not just going to have hits, I'm going to have global hits.
Right.
And very, very nice. And Rob was so nice to me. On the night the Grammy, sent me a lovely text. The night before, he grabbed me in a headlock in Soho house in the bar and said, you always had a high opinion of yourself, but man, you delivered.
Yeah.
And I said I wouldn't. And I said to him, I wouldn't have done it without him and everyone else. There's nothing but love, and I wouldn't have met Steve if it wasn't for Sony. And then when Steve came to Universal, it was brilliant. That's the other thing artists and managers don't realize. We're building a network every day.
Right.
I'm now hanging with you.
Mm-hmm.
Something comes up, I know him. I want to call him. I'm going to text him.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you the other way around. Nick, we're all one phone call away from whoever we need to get to.
Mm-hmm.
But we built a network, 31 years of building a network.
Mm-hmm.
I did my first thing as a nightclub promoter when I was 16.
A lot of people seem to look down on networking, and I think a lot of people got it kind of confused because they'll say, when people talk about networking, for whatever reason, I feel like they think it means to network up and find you have to go this way.
Wrong. That's the wrong way to look at it.
This way. You gotta go that way. To those individuals who are in the same class as you, like you said, the darkest is in there.
Yeah. But there's another thing. I want to say another thing. I believe now, my new company believes now, we've only hired people, no experience. We have an NWS Academy. I go around talking to universities. I go around talking to people and say, look, I'm looking to hire people all the time. I'm looking to hire people now.
Yeah.
If someone's watching this, they want to reach out, academy@nwsmusicgroup.com, apply. Mm-hmm. We got guys working in Mexico. We got a guy working in north of England. They send their stuff in every day.
Yeah.
They don't come to, they can zoom into the meeting if they want, but they send their stuff in, they talk to the team, they learn how to do it, they come and stay in London for a bit. Anyway, it's amazing. We have an amazing network below your peer group and in your peer group.
Yep.
So if you go to college or you're in a band or you're with a tour manager, these are people that will grow in the business with you.
100%.
Number two is, if someone calls you up and say, yo, I love what you did with Jesse. I love what you did with your podcast. I want to come and meet you. I want to have a chat with you. If they approach you the right way, have a coffee with them.
Mm-hmm.
It's half an hour of your time. 10 minutes in, you think this person's not worthy of it, say, yo, you're not ready to have this conversation. Go away and be real with them.
Yeah.
I had one this week. Guy came in, wanted to start showing me his band. I flipped up sound charts or chart metric. His biggest song was getting 6 streams a day on Spotify. I said, bro, even if they're the best band of all time, you haven't done A to B.
Right.
You haven't come to the meeting with your clothes on. The first requirement is put your clothes on. and your band having 6 streams a day is like you coming in here naked. That's not cool. Go away, get them to a stage where there's things to acknowledge. I said, when's the last time your artist posted? He said, 2 weeks ago. I said, bro, said, you need to work on yourself. You don't need me.
Right.
And by the way, when you do it, I'll call you.
Yeah.
I'll notice. Or come and tell me what's going on.
Yeah.
I've helped artists and managers, I've helped them navigate deals when I wasn't involved, because I said to the person, go and do this. And I said it to them in a way like, yo, you're not ready for me. And then they called me, I did it. And guess what? This person and that person, I was like, cool. Do you want some help with that? I don't want no money. I don't want no accolade. I'll privately.
For sure.
You've now got these people involved.
Great.
You should speak to this lawyer. You should speak to this person. Do this. Show me the deals. I'll give you an opinion on it.
Yeah.
Just because I want to play it out. I want to pay it forward. I've been blessed with so much success.
Yeah.
I've had so many hits, and I continue to have hits. Got this mega one at the moment. We had a massive Latin one last year. We had a
What's the mega
Nigerian
one?
one. Imogen Heat, headline.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Even that came from paying it forward. I sent a text to her the day I heard it was going from one of my team. They loved this record. It was on the TV, on Spotify in the office. And I said, arrogantly, I signed that 20 years ago. I signed her 20 years ago. And he said, I was going mad today. And I sent a text saying, congratulations, it only took 20 years to go viral. She came back and said, yeah, just in time for right reversion. I said, amazing. Could do with your help. I said, I got you. Should we speak? We spoke and we made a deal.
Amazing.
Right now, I didn't text her with any knowledge. I texted to show love.
Yeah.
Show love.
Yeah.
Be respectful. Clive Davis had time for me.
Right.
Roger Ames had time for me. Rob Stringer hired me and mentored me and shouted at me and told me I could be better. Told me it wasn't good enough. Told me that I need to do better. You know, I had great people all the time. Muff Winwood, in my opinion, one of the greatest A&R men in British history. I even handed him the award and the A&R awards to acknowledge he's a legend. The guy A&R'd The Clash. Let me say that again. He didn't sign him, he A&R'd The Clash. His first day at CBS, he produced This Town Ain't Big Enough for Both of Us, Sparks. He produced Dire Straits' first album. He was in the Spencer Davis Group with his brother, Steve Winwood. The guy is a legend. He was as old as my father. He did one of the funniest. Can I tell one anecdote about him?
Yeah.
So I'm there one day and we had 2 mixes on a project. You know when you A/B something.
Yeah.
So I had 2 mixes and 2 masterings. And the lady who worked with me for years, Jo, brilliant A&R person, me and her couldn't make our mind up. So we put them on one CD. We went A, B. Didn't explain which mixer, which version, which producer, which mastering. We didn't have any of that. And Muff had the office directly opposite me. We had glass partition things, and he had his door open. His assistant, my assistant, in the middle pool. Yeah. And I walked over and I said, Muff, can I ask you a favour? And he said, what's that? I said, could you listen to these 2 versions of this song and tell me which one you think is better? Because my ears are gone dumb, my ears are lost on this. He said, okay, cool. So I'm making calls and emailing, and then I suddenly hear my song on. And he listens to the first one all the way through, takes out the machine, puts the thing in, he comes over to my office, he says, version A, and gave it to me. I said, don't mean to be disrespectful, Muff, but you only listen to one version because I can hear your office from over here and you had the door open. And he said, that's correct. He says, that version sounds like a hit. Why do I need to listen to the other version? He says, no one's ever going to hear the other version. And let me tell you, Nick, that version sounded incredible to me. I'm not going to waste my ears listening to a version. The other, it's going to confuse me.
That's
and
interesting.
I was like, he's like, instinctively, really? I made a choice.
He said that because it would confuse him if he heard the other
He's
version.
like, the first version is incredible.
Yeah.
Why do I need to hear something else?
Right.
Incredible's incredible.
Right.
It made him feel great. It was right. He's like, no, that's the version. By the way, I released it. It was a massive hit.
Massive hit.
Yeah.
You've had incredible success rate, and you talk about hits a lot, and you have several.
Yeah.
And I know that you can't explain what a hit is, but you talk about the feeling of it.
Feeling.
What is that feeling that you get when you hear a hit record, if you can describe that?
Shall I go back to the beginning?
Yeah.
And this will show you how I know. why did I get the music business? I was a soccer player who failed. I went to university to do economics. I was living in the north of England, a university in Leeds, and it rains all the time. It's cold and it rains.
You don't say.
There was an ecstasy explosion in UK and Europe in the late 80s. I finished playing football in I went to university in 1990.
Okay.
And now ecstasy's coming out, and I really hadn't dabbled with drugs because I've been playing professional sport.
Right.
So there was these rave clubs, and my friends in London were into it. I've been to a couple with them, and I find a few places in Leeds that do this stuff. So we'd go to the clubs that played it. There was only a few of them, and we queue outside to get in. There's always a big queue, and there is a girl walking down the queue. And remember, I am a young heterosexual male full of testosterone, and I want to get with the best looking girl I can get with. And I know I'm not Brad Pitt. I know I'm not going to get there. I'm not Brad Pitt, and I'm not a success in anything that I'm doing. I'm a student who failed at his last thing. And this beautiful woman, better looking than anybody in the queue, walks down the queue, goes to the front, and I said to him, well, this guy in the queue, who's that girl? And he says, oh, it's the DJ's girlfriend. That's a lie, sorry. A guy walks down the queue holding record boxes with this incredibly beautiful girl. And I said, yo, who's that? He says, that's the DJ with his girlfriend. I'm like, so in my eyes, the best looking girl's gone.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm like, shit, I'm desperate to go in the club and dance to music, but already the girl of my dreams is gone. And then this other girl walks down. I remember she was in my year at the university. She was, I think, a swimmer as well. She was gorgeous and tall and long dark hair, and she just had this way about her. She had an amazing bone structure. She had this presence about her. And she walked down the queue, and I was like, oh, it's so-and-so from, like, well, hi. And she's like, hi, Nick. And just walked straight past me. I'm getting wet. She taps on the door. Guest list guy comes, and I said, yo, who's she dating? Because I knew her name. And they said, the promoter. I'm like, yo, the promoter, DJ. I was like, I need to become one of these people.
Well, a DJ or a promoter.
I end up becoming both.
Okay. Right.
So now I'm a DJ. I'm a promoter and a DJ. And I become successful as a DJ.
Yeah.
So that's the reason I got into music, other than the passion for music.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to meet a beautiful, and by the way, I ended up marrying a beautiful woman who's in the hotel here in LA, and she's visiting LA while I'm here. She's staying and I'm going home. But she is an incredibly beautiful woman, and I don't think she would have noticed me if I wasn't the club promoter or the DJ, but she obviously liked me.
You met in that time when you were the club promoter.
31 years later, we're still together, and we've got
congrats.
2 children.
Amazing.
So it all works. So for anyone watching this thinking, you misogynist pig, well, I've met the woman in my dreams, and she still is the woman in my dreams. Okay, so that's all cool. But when I was a DJ, if I played a record to the crowd, a new record, and they didn't like it, they'd go to the toilet or go to the bar. The dance floor would be empty.
They'd let you know. What year is this? This is
1991, 92. I think it started in late 1990. I made pizzas in between, whatever. Anyway,
Yeah.
I had real world jobs, real world problems.
Sure.
But
I very different time in the
very
clubs.
different time. And I was playing vinyl, and I was DJing, and I learned if I wanted to get rebooked, if I want to keep my venues full, I had to play music the public liked. Mm-hmm. Some of the records might not be my favorites, but I had to find an instinct and learn. But when you played a new record and everyone liked it, that feeling you felt inside, that feeling of acknowledgement, gratification that you chose correctly, felt like nothing else. You're like, yeah, I'm vindicated. I know what I'm doing. I'm good. And it was instant, right? Then I played 4 nights a week, 1,000 people a night, 4,000 people. So before anyone had seen TikTok, seen any data, seen anything else, I'd be playing, you give me a record on white label, I play it alongside the hot records already, and your record got as big a cheer or as the dance floor got busier, I'd call you after and say, yo, we need to make a deal. And these are one-offs. These are something you made in your bedroom with your friend, or you made it in a small studio. I'll say, what are you going to do? And you say, I don't know. And I was working for a cool label called FFRR that everyone wanted to be signed to. And my boss was Pete Tong, and he's the most famous club DJ.
There you go.
So, and another mentor, another person I learned from. And I'd call you up and say, let's make a deal. And you say, yo, cool, yeah. And I say, I'll give you 10,000. You say, yeah, great. we make a deal and 20% royalty, and I put it out, it's a big hit, then you're a big DJ and you're a big producer and you're doing remixes. The network built, okay? There was incredible DJs, Paul Oakenfold, all these credible people I got to work with at the time. But I play those records in the club and I get this feeling.
And you would get them right more times than not.
No. Well, the first, what happened, you play and you'd learn quickly.
Yeah.
And before that, when I was a kid, I used to make mixtapes for all my friends.
Right.
I'd take the songs off the top 40 radio.
Yeah.
I'd snippet them up by playing them cassette to cassette. People already remember this.
Yeah,
and
I remember.
Cut the bits out and the DJ speaking, get rid of that and make my own compilations. And then I'd give them to my friends and I see the ones I liked and didn't like and I got a sense. But then I became a DJ and I learned to play. And I got this feeling of, oh yeah. So my first hits at London Records, I signed 18 songs and 8 went top 10. Or maybe, 8 went top 10 and 8 out of 18, or 10 out of 18 I think went top 10 and 8 made money but didn't go top 10. Top 10 in the national chart. They were dance records, not in the dance chart, in the national chart. And then there were hits in Spain and hits in Mexico and hits in Europe where I owned them. Well, I owned them, the company owned them. So I learned by playing, looking the audience in the eye, feeling the vibe in the room. And by the way, the drugs enhanced the feeling of that, yeah? I'm not going to deny it, and haven't taken drugs since 1997, but during that period I took some drugs. I took a lot of drugs. But anyway, not saying anyone should take them, but I had a crazy period.
Sure.
And thankfully never had...
It's fine, man.
Okay. So I learned to do that. Then I started evolving into rap
Bonus
music.
section of the manager's playbook.
Yeah, exactly.
Drugs, by Nick Raphael.
Yeah, exactly.
Take them, but not for the rest of your career. Just a certain point. Get out super early. Yeah,
okay,
exactly.
So I've got this, understood this feeling. So when I was start making pop records later on, I would get someone would play and I go, oh, I got that weird feeling.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
But it's almost like I trained my body. Let's say you worked, I love martial arts. I've been into contact sports for years. I've trained martial arts, I teach martial arts. When you do martial arts long enough and someone steps to you, right? You see what is the backhand, you see the way they turn their body, you see the front leg. They're going to punch you with this hand. Most people are not going to jab you in a street fight. They're going to throw a big right.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at you, the way you set yourself up, I'm waiting for the big right.
Yeah.
So I already know, boom, boom, I'm going to do this. How do I know that? Because I train 3 to 5 times a week for years. When you go to nightclubs and you have to DJ, and I did 1,000 shows, I learned the feeling. So then you get into a studio and you hear a song, you feel the energy in the room, you feel the feeling. And the other thing is A&R. Christian has this brilliant saying, my business partner. What does A&R stand for?
Artist and repertoire.
No, it doesn't.
What does it stand for?
It stands for amplification and recordings. By the way, you're correct, I'm correct. He said, you have to amplify your recording. So once the artist has created the repertoire, you have to amplify that to the world. You have to tell the world, Sam Smith could be the male Adele.
Right.
That's what Steve Barnett was telling people. And because he told them Adele was Adele, and she was the next big thing, they believed
They're
him.
going to believe him.
So, and because I had so many hits.
Monty told me the same shit.
Yeah, really?
Yeah. Monty told me the same thing.
Monty's an incredible executive.
Monty Lippman, he told me a long time ago, he's like, we're just going to go around and saying Julia Michaels is best new artist. And she's going to be the best new artist. Or like at least get in that category.
And what they call it in the new world of new thought, that behavior? Manifestation.
Manifestation, right? Yeah.
That's what
he's
you're
like,
doing.
Yeah, he's like, this is what we do. We just say it, and it happens.
Yeah.
We make it happen.
Yeah. No, you could say it sometimes, and the artist's not good enough, whatever.
Sure, but like you're at least driving towards something.
Yeah. And I agree with Christian. It is artist and repertoire, but once the record is made, it's amplification and recordings. Your job is to take that recording and tell the world, this motherfucker is going to be the most important artist in your life. It's like when you're talking to a radio station. You're talking to someone, and if you don't believe it, and you don't have any belief, and the only way you can have belief is that feeling.
Yeah.
Then once you have that feeling, and you have that belief, You have to turn the music on and has to deliver. The other thing the artist and you have to do is the narrative. Tell the story of the record.
Okay, explain that a little bit more.
Okay. An artist
For this day and age.
Yeah, well, that's what Instagram and TikTok and Discord and everything.
Yeah.
Olivia Rodrigo driver's license was about a situation that all the kids knew in her life. So when they hear the song, they go, that's for real. I believe that. I believe it. I heard this story back in the day. It makes me sound so old, but I don't care. I'm telling it. I love Norman Whitfield. And he worked with a guy called Barrett Strong, I believe. And he wrote a song called Love Don't Live Here Anymore for Rolls Royce. Gwen Dickey told me that Barrett was told by his wife, do not stay at the studio all night. I am sick of it. Norman makes the songs. You are the lyric writer. Once you've written a lyric, come home, be with me. But you don't have to sit in the studio till the song's finished. And they would stay in the studio till 2, 3 in the morning.
Yeah.
And the musicians would sometimes sleep on the floor because they only had a 4-track at the time. And she said, they finished one song one night. They finished early hours in the morning, and Barrett goes home. And he says, he opens, allegedly, this is the story she told, what's those things called, a letterbox at the end of the drive? Takes out the letters. This is like in the
mailbox?
Mailbox.
Yeah.
He walks down the drive, opens the door to his house. It's like, sun is up, tiptoes up the stairs, and the door to the bedroom's open. And he walks in, babe, where are you? The bed's not been slept in. The wardrobe is open on her side. And he opens the door to the bathroom, and in lipstick she's written on the mirror, you abandoned me, love don't live here anymore.
Wow.
Now, she told me this story. She then tells me that he had the mail, and then he went to find a pen, and he wrote, you abandoned me, love don't live, and he wrote the entire lyric as a stream of consciousness.
Right. Wow.
And he cried.
Amazing.
I said, how do you know he cried? She said, because when he came to the studio and he told the idea to Norman, when I later had to sing it, you know when you cry and the biro like smudges, they had to go and get the secretary to type it because I couldn't read the lyrics in the booth.
Oh, shit.
Now that gives me the chills because that's the etymology, which is how a word comes back. That's the etymology of a song. And I love finding out where the heart of the song is, what that spark was, what the thing is that makes someone write that song. And then can the world feel it? Can they feel the thing you're talking about? Do they believe you? Do they understand you? Stay With Me is about a failed one-night stand. I'm not very good at one-night stands. I need love, I'm just a man. It's vulnerable as well. Sam wrote it from a real place. Songs, now, I don't know if I've got the Gwen Dickey song story right, but I remember it like this that Gwen told me.
Right.
But my
Regardless,
God,
it made an impression on you.
that song has been a hit multiple times on multiple artists because it's got a heart in it. It's got something that's real and it feels and it means. You can have a dance song and it's just a groove and it's whatever, but some of those great songs, they have a heart. They mean something. The person wrote them. The story came from a real place. It comes from somewhere that you go, oh, and it hits you and it feels. And they're the really special records. And if you do A&R, or if you're an artist or you're a producer, you feel those things in a room. And if you're not intuitive. Right? Now, data is important. Data can help you determine if someone is likable, if someone is working, if someone's doing this, if people like the song. But there is hit songs have something in them, the really big hit songs, that really, really bite, that really feel. And a great artist, when they sing a great song, they add emotion and pain to it.
Yes.
That wasn't there. Sometimes I hear a songwriter's demo and I'm like, I ain't feeling this. And then the artist sings it and you say,
Different story.
oh, ho, 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 ho.
Because the best artists in the world understand how to interpret those
100%.
feelings.
100%. The same line of a movie
Yeah.
done by a bad actor is a bad line.
It's a bad line. Yeah, it's a bad film.
It's a bad film.
Right.
You know, a silly line from a movie, right? I'll be back by Arnold Schwarzenegger. Anyone else says that, but that weird voice and that Austrian accent, I'll be back, and the size of him and everything else, and you're like, shit, that's become an iconic thing. What happened?
Right.
You know, and that's not the best line from a movie ever. There's loads of great lines, but I'm saying the way you deliver it's important.
No, but that's a hit line.
Yeah, it is. Oh, by the way, that is a hit line.
It's a hit line.
Yeah.
Right.
And you hear things over the years. You're in the studio and you're like, yo, stop. What was that?
So when you hear something like that, in this day and age, incredible record.
Yeah. I got one for you, one of yours that we did together. Promises.
Right, right.
I remember.
Yeah, tell me about that one, because I'd love to hear your side of the story.
I remember coming. I remember the record get sent to us.
Yeah.
And the weirdest thing was, I got sent the demo by Mark from Calvin, having done it. It got sent, I think, sent to Jack and I listened to it. On the first listen, I'm like, and then their promises, da, 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 da. And the melody, I was like, and then it had that thing, tonight.
Right.
Just that really weird, which I think is Jesse, isn't it?
It is Jesse, yeah.
Okay, and it's just that stupid thing, tonight. And the funny thing was, when we came to LA with my kids for the summer to Steve, I used to come at the beginning of the summer and bring my children with as well. I'd go to Steve's Capitol Congress, and then I'd stay for like 3 weeks, whatever, and they'd have a summer holiday. The first week I'd work solid, and they just hang out. And the next 2 weeks I'd do like breakfast meetings, and then I'd hang with my family. And I think we shot the Sam video in LA with, I'm going mad, I know the video director is lovely. He did all the Calvin stuff.
Yeah, he's not Jake. My name as well.
Is it not Jake? He's Jake's brother, Emil Nava. Right. Emil Nava, amazing guy.
Yeah.
And we get in the car afterwards, and my daughter and her friend and my son, and we played the record, and every time it got to the end of the chorus, they went, tonight? And it was just like this stupid thing. It's like, the promises, and then I just go like that. And they'd all go, tonight, like en masse. Like, and I was in the car and I was like, it's going to be massive.
That's amazing.
Another one was...
This is before it came out.
Before it came out.
How did Calvin end up?
Sam?
Yeah.
How did that
end up on the record?
Well, no, how that happened was Sam had done Latch. It was the first thing we ever heard from Sam as the new Sam. Yeah. Sam had music before, but this incarnation of Sam. And Sam was very loyal to Disclosure because they helped launch Sam's career. So Sam didn't work with other dance producers. Calvin had reached out. They were mutual friends. They really admired each other. And Sam did Omen on the second album. And then I think the vibe was, look, we're cool, just do what you want to do. And Sam was like, I think sort of checked back in with him, is my recollection, just to say, they're same managers, they're all friends. So I'm thinking of doing something with Calvin. And they're like, yo, Calvin's cool, do your thing. So eventually, after Calvin and Sam had talked about it for ages, Jack and I came to, we'd gone to LA, we'd organised for Sam to do the writing, because obviously there's a diary where there's a guy who's become that big a superstar, an artist become that big a superstar. There's always diary issues. So we worked out a time they could do this. And then Mark said to us, okay, so we come to LA and Mark said, can I see you guys? I hear you both here. We're like, yeah. So we go up to 360 offices and Mark says, this writing session, just to clarify, is it for our record or your record? I said, well, we haven't even started this new album. Okay. Well, so it can be for our record. We're like, yeah, cool. We're cool. Just do your thing, and first of all, let's write some songs, see if anything comes from the sessions. He's like, yeah, I just want to clarify. I said, look, Mark, he said, we're making an album at the minute. I said, well, you're ahead of us then, because we're not making anything. Sam's in the early stages of writing, and I think this is seen by Sam and by us as, if it's a feature, it's a feature. It's cool. Cool. And he kept asking the same question. Definitely sure. I haven't misheard this. I was like, no. And remember, Sam's a mega star.
Sure.
Right. Calvin's huge as well. Calvin's the biggest DJ in the world. Sam's probably the biggest male singer of that. One of the biggest male singers. Obviously, Ed's also super huge at the time. So we leave. Yeah, cool. What are you doing for dinner tonight? Don't know. Do you want to go to Matsuhito? I said, cool, it's one of my favorite restaurants. I want to come with a couple of my friends. You and Jack come. So Jack and I agreed to come. Get to dinner. We sit down, and Mark goes, I've got one question for you in front of my friends. And if you answer it correctly, I pay for dinner. I was like, okay, what's the question? It says, this session, if we get a song, it's for Sam or from Calvin. I said, we had this conversation afternoon, it's Calvin. And what about Sam doing a video? And Jack said, look, we have a break in the US tour on these dates. Sam will be in LA. If we find one, we'll make a day in LA. So we get a video performance and we'll get a thing. I said, yeah, cool. Right, I'm buying dinner. I had the most lovely dinner. I think he kept saying, how can you, is there not a Universal, Sony issue? I said, there are no issues. Two artists want to do it. I'm the head of the label, Jack's the manager,
right.
You're the other manager.
What are we talking about?
I know Mike Pickering, your A&R's a really good friend of mine, personal friend of mine. No one's stopping this happening. This is cool. He's like, nah, there's got to be more politics and drama.
Yeah.
I was like, bro, I don't do politics. Let's just do it. Anyway, they did the writing session. They sent the demo. Jesse co-wrote the demo, performed on the record.
Yep.
Co-wrote the record. And yeah, the break in the tour, video gets shot, song comes out.
Massive.
Absolutely, makes over 1 billion streams now.
Yes.
Calvin, Mark, quality human beings, wonderful people.
Absolutely.
We get a record together that does 1 billion streams. But the reality was, the whole thing was zero drama. Two people wanted to do it. Sam waited a minute out of respect for disclosure. When they do it, it becomes a mega hit.
Yeah.
And nothing but love, nothing but positivity. And then Sam had Dancing with a Stranger.
Right.
And I think that had been written in the break when we were doing the video. So I'd come to LA to shoot that, and Sam had written Dancing with a Stranger, which I absolutely loved. I mean, I just thought that record was, you know, I'd broken up and now I'm in the club dancing with a stranger. I mean, what a great, clever lyric. Sam at their best.
Yeah, very much so.
It's just Jimmy and Sam together in the room. Pooh! I mean, it is one of the great modern writing teams.
I mean, was 2022 Holy?
Huh?
Holy did it?
Unholy was 20,
Unholy.
yeah, Unholy. That was the last record for me at Universal. Sam, that's Jimmy and Sam and Stargate again.
Yeah.
Sorry, not Stargate, nothing to do with Stargate, I apologise, sorry. It's Jimmy, Sam and Circuit and Blake and Omar and Ilya.
Oh, wow.
What a team.
Yo.
They went away to Jamaica at G-Jam to write.
Yeah.
Sam had this idea about a situation where someone was talking inappropriately in the studio. And Sam was like, yo, they kept talking about going to a strip club and for the shit that was going down. And Sam was like, this isn't cool. And it just stuck in their mind and came up with the whole concept. And they were talking about it. I think they had dinner in G-Jam, is my understanding. And then they came up with a
That's how it happens.
Again, hear that piece of music.
Yeah.
That caused a lot of arguments.
For sure.
As a piece of music. Oh, it doesn't fit with Sam as an artist, everything else sounds like, I love this song, I want to come with it. That's when you back an artist. By the way, artists earn the right to be backed. When you're that big.
When you're at that level, for sure.
You want to do something like that, that's amazing and controversial, what a record. By the way, that gave us chills. That gave me chills. I got it.
When you heard that record. Now, when it's a newer artist, though, that you're working with, when you're talking about telling that story, how are you telling that story? And I think we can go back to a little bit more of the ecosystem, right? Yeah. How is it that if you hear a hit record, because there's tons of great records out there, but they don't, do you think they all get heard? All great records get heard and can become massive? Or do you need to, like you did back in the day,
a great record
throw
on the wrong,
money into it, throw a good strategy to it?
Okay, a great record on a bad artist is not a hit. An okay record on a great artist can be a hit. Well, not the biggest hit, but has a chance. Like, look, Taylor, Ariana, Beyonce can put songs out that other artists wouldn't even get in the top 200.
Sweater?
No, I'm fine. Those artists wouldn't even get their song, wouldn't even be top 200 song, but on a big artist, it might be a top 20 song.
Top 10, top 20.
Top 10, top 20. And it won't be a big career song for them, but it can be big.
Yeah.
Right? Okay.
Probably the way streaming is in the state.
Yeah, that can work. Okay. On a new artist, you have to have a really special record
Right.
to get heard.
Right.
Because you don't have the fans. So you've got to get word of mouth. And people aren't looking out for your next record. But what you need is a team of believers. You need enough believers on your team, from your manager to your label. It can be your publisher. You know, it can be all these things. You know, the story of Big John, when he hears Empire State of Mind as a full song, and it gets sent to him, I can't remember if it's Guy Moo or the writer or whoever sent it to Big John, and he came back and he said, yo, can you take the verses off? And they take the verses off, and he sends it to Jay,
Oh, interesting.
and he says, check this hook, check this track, it's incredible. And the chorus is, you know, New York,
Yeah.
and you're from New York, da, 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 da. Jay's like, boom, go, let's do it. It's that artist with that song, the A&R knowing that's the right thing, and that becomes a mega hit,
Yep.
right? It's the right artist at the right time with the right song, pooh, that's dynamite. But it takes an army of people to make a career. So if you're sat there arrogantly going, I want to do this and I want to keep that and I want to, well, you're making it harder. The more people fighting for you, the more people on your side,
Yeah.
the more chance you have of being successful, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Now, by the way, you can go into a big company with lots of people and you get lost. Well, again,
Very easily.
very easily. So sometimes a good team of believers is great, but that good team of believers have got to get my concentric circles.
Yeah.
They've got to get more people to believe.
Yeah.
Another circle, more people to believe.
Let me ask you,
Yeah.
if you don't mind.
Yeah.
You're like 3 or 4 years removed from Capital.
Yeah.
You decided to do your own thing independently, which I want to talk about now. But
Yeah.
but being 4 years removed from that now,
3, yeah.
3 years.
Yeah.
2025. That was
End
2020.
of 21, so start
Oh, end of
22.
21.
Yeah.
Okay. How do you feel now that you left that system? Because you're talking about how.
Nothing but love and respect for the people.
Yeah.
Nothing but love and respect for the system. But I feel there's an incredible moment happening where the middle section of music is getting bigger, bigger, and bigger, and bigger.
Was that a part of your decision?
My part of my decision was the minute I left, I got a call from one of the majors and offered a label deal immediately. But even though it was a label deal, and even though I would have owned majority percentage, it was a job. Yeah, I could sell it at the end and think, but it's technically a job. However you dress it up, and I would have loved to work those people. And there was a bit of me that went, I've done 31 years. I've had some of the, you know, my artists have got Oscars, won American Music Awards. I'm using a lot of American ones here. Grammys, in the UK, Alvin Novello's, ASCAP Awards, CSEC Awards, BMI Awards, Billboard Awards, Disney, every award you can win.
Yeah.
I've had diamond singles, platinums, everything. And it wouldn't have happened without the people at Universal, wouldn't have happened without people at Sony, wouldn't have happened without people at BMG before that.
Right.
All these people allowed me, help my artists have hits. But I felt this is the first, since 2016, there's been a shift. And I've been paid incredibly well, sold those pub companies I had, and I've done really well. And I felt to truly do one more thing, I'd love to make an independent company of significance that could help artists throughout the world have hits in every country in the world, make differences to people's lives, in the so being make difference to my own life, and achieve again. I'd done it in the system.
Yep.
I would love to, and I had an opportunity at one stage to come and run an American label, but due to family circumstances, I had to reject that opportunity. I don't want to discuss that, but that happened, right?
What year?
I don't want to say because it's not fair on the person who took the job and did very well.
Okay.
And I wanted to do that job, but family circumstances didn't allow it.
Okay.
New challenge is to have a globally successful record company that we start from scratch, that helps artists and can have the next Weekend, can have the next Sam Smith, could find the next Taylor Swift, could find the next Ed Sheeran. Because I think there's an opportunity. Would I partner with a major along the way on some of those artists? Potentially.
Yeah.
No, I
Never say no.
Never say no. Love those people.
Yeah.
One of those artists might say, I'd rather stay independent and I don't want to go in the system. I would argue with them the pros and cons of it, but can do it. Can we have hits in every country in the world? Well, currently the Imogen Heap record, which we're working, is so high up in the charts, I think it can be achieved. Our Latin record last year, Kiki, 10 Gun Plan, has been a humongous Latin record, right? And has streamed incredibly well. We did that ourselves with sound on distribution because it was already in the system there. Can all these things happen? Yeah. Do I feel now? I think there is layers to the business now.
So can you talk about those layers?
Yeah, I think the majors are there to service those incredible catalogs and the superstars they have.
Yeah.
And they're looking in every artist to be the superstar of tomorrow. I would love to find a global superstar. I have, and I will, and I'll find others again. I genuinely believe that. But there's an area where they don't look because there's only so much they can do.
Totally.
And there's so much music.
Yeah, yeah.
And AI will mean there's even more music.
And the model seems like it's now distribution mainly. Well, a lot of it is distribution with the labels.
I got to be honest. I've got so many good friends in the system. Yeah. I don't want to speak anything negative.
I don't think that's negative. What I'm saying.
No. It's changed even since I've left. It's changed.
Yeah.
Also, two of them are public companies.
Yeah.
That's changed the dynamic and thing
completely.
of it. I think when we look at record companies building up around the world, there's some big companies building, have built, are doing well, are building outside of the system. Look, Concord just bought STEM, so they're going to be in distribution.
Yeah.
You've got Create with Broke, great, the new world companies. You've got Avex just started with Brandon in America.
Yeah.
Right? So, and they're a privately owned situation that do $1 billion in turnover already, before they even start. They are fast growing companies. My own company's growing crazy fast. If you look how much we're turning over and how quickly we've done it in 3 years, it's faster than any other company I've ever. Look, even when I went to Universal, it took me 3 years to have a hit.
Right.
We had a hit in our first 12 months.
How big is the team?
10.
10 again.
Again, yeah, I like that number.
It's a
good
that?
number. I like that number. It's a good number.
Yeah.
But so
soccer players number right there in
11.
South America.
I don't know. Oh, you mean Messi and
Maradona? Is Maradona?
Maradona was Maradona's a 10.
No, for me it's Valderrama. I think Valderrama's number.
Valderrama. You like Valderrama?
I'm from Colombia.
Oh, okay. Right.
Yeah.
Your goalkeeper's the one that did the crazy.
Higuita, the Scorpion.
Yeah, the Scorpion. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, René Higuita.
Yeah. So I believe there's now a whole new layer, the middle layer, that's growing bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. By the way, the majors still take more and more money and are still becoming bigger and bigger and bigger and making more profit. But the record business is growing so quick that even the majors, what the majors are doing now, look, Rob's being very public about it. They acquire lots of things.
Yeah.
They acquire AWOL. They acquire Downtown and Fuga. They're acquiring these things. They buy catalogs. The labels are now, when I first joined the record business, the prior period, Universal Polygram didn't start as a record label. They bought Island, they bought A&M, they bought all these companies, right? They bought Def Jam, right?
Yeah, people forget that.
People forget that. I think we're in this new era. I think we're going to build a load of record companies.
Yeah.
And they'll be acquired by whichever entity they are.
Fuck, I never thought about that.
And that's how I see it now.
Wow.
We've just gone full circle. We're back in the age of independent people. Look.
And so, what does that company look like then? So, for your company, what are the positions that you have in there? What are you focusing on in terms of like?
Focus on
it's 10 people A&R.
There's 12 of actually I lied. There's 12 of us, me and Christian included. There's 10 staff. We have one office manager, one person does sync, and everyone else does A&R.
Marketing
we outsource.
Outsourced.
We're in a digital age.
Yeah.
We hire everyone to do everything.
Gotcha.
Look, I've had with my artists so many billion stream records, so many multi-platinum records, but put me in a studio and there's a desk and there's the instruments and say make a record. I can't do it.
Yeah.
I've been a producer, I've been an artist, and I was terrible, right? But I can hire the best writers, the best musicians, the best producers, the best stuff, and I can sit in a room and say, I'm feeling that, I'm not feeling that, right? Doesn't make me, but I can't actually make the record.
Yeah.
So I don't need those songwriters sat around waiting for me all day long.
Right.
I'll call them when I need them. I'll call you and say, I need a girl to help me out in this. Is Jessie available? And you say, yeah. She's doing her art singing at the moment. But actually, you know what? She's taking a couple of weeks off to write with other people.
Yeah.
I'm feeling your artist. Let me send it to her, right? I can make that call to you.
Yeah.
I don't need to have you say, look, keep her on hold for me for 6 months. You'll be like, bro, I ain't keeping her on hold for no one, right? So I don't need my own writing team. This isn't, back in the day, Motown, they had a full-time writing team. They were incredible. That's how they did it. I don't want people sitting around, you know. And also, someone who works an African record versus someone who works a Dutch dance record, they're different people.
Yeah.
They're different people you plug in. It's different relationships. I don't need the same people. I need different people working the record.
Interesting. So then when it comes from an A&R perspective, what are you looking for in an A&R? In this?
We show them the way that we do it.
Oh, don't tell me you're not going to give me the sauce.
No. You know the sauce. I've told you already. Focus.
Fair enough. Okay.
But what we do...
This is where I'm going to start saying, yo, man, this came off real arrogant.
I'm arrogant again. I'm back again. Yeah. No. What we say to them is, okay, let's be real. We've named some incredible executives.
Yes.
From Monty to Rob to Lucian to the guys that run Ireland to the guys that run Mercury to Pete Edge, who I think is an absolute G.
He's great.
These incredible people,
great.
right?
Yeah.
You mentioned Darkers, he's brilliant. Ferdy's brilliant. These incredible people. Most people when they work at a big company, these gods of the business, they don't sit in meetings with them generally.
Mm-hmm.
I always loved is when I'm hiring someone, is that Christian and I, and Ben, who runs a publishing company, who signed Niles Barkley, Crazy, he signed CeeLo afterwards, he signed Aphex Twin, he signed some of the most important artists. He did Estelle, American Boy, he had Pendulum, who did Rude Boy by Rihanna. He's had it all, yeah? Charlie runs the label for us day to day. The kids that sit in our meeting, they don't have a meeting with their team and then have a meeting with us. They present their ideas to us all the time. We do A&R every day. We have an A&R meeting every day, 2.5 hours.
Really?
And we talk about records that we talked about 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. What's going on? Has it got any better?
Even if you're in different parts of the world?
Even if we're in different parts of the world. We do it all the time.
Okay.
And guess what? When we're not doing A&R, we have WhatsApp groups.
Yeah.
Oh, found this. Oh, what does everyone think? But when we're in a meeting, we'll say to the guys, that's just a terrible idea. Why would you bring that record up? And they have to be able to justify themselves.
Right.
But they're dealing with us directly. So that it's like when I went to Clive Davis A&R meeting, he inspired the meetings that we do now. They took one forever. You can ask Pete and Keith and all those guys.
Yeah, Larry
and
Jackson.
Pete, Larry Jackson, and all those guys. They could take 6-7 hours. I think 8 hours probably. He starts just after lunch or during lunchtime. They could leave there at 8 o'clock at night. He'd go through every lyric on every song, and what about this for Whitney, and what about this for Monica, and have we heard the Alicia Keys demos, and have we got the Santana demos? I sat in one of those meetings when they were doing a Whitney Houston album, right? And Wyclef Jean, who was the hottest producer in the world at the time, was sat in the meetings. And I heard It's Not Right, It's Okay, Rodney Jerkins' record, with a sounder like Whitney, who sang it first.
Okay.
Before Whitney did it. So they'd like even get someone to sing it, to sound like the artist, and then you would go, oh, it'll suit her voice. And they presented it to her so that she didn't even have to think about the key. It was like, yo, do you like this song? We don't present it with a man singing it. We can change the key for you. No, we'll do the work now.
Yep.
We'll make sure it's a female vocal, make sure it's the girl who sounds like you. And then, I can feel this, yeah. I love the way they presented it. I love the lyrics. I love the way they looked at every lyric. I was like, oh my God, this is a masterclass in A&R. I didn't write notes, but mentally, like, shit, this is the best A&R meeting I've ever been in. By the way, it would have killed me doing it every week with Clive, because 8 hours and he'd wear a suit, it was crazy. But And I read all the books about the great A&R people and the great executives. They fucking inspire me. And I want to inspire those kids. And I think you as the leader, if you start your own company, Jimmy with his own company, Jimmy inspired them. No question.
Right.
Rick and
Russell?
Russell at the beginning,
Yeah.
they inspired them. Leo came in and he was the embodiment of it, right?
Leo, Kevin, and Julie.
Yeah. Then they all came in and they were the next crew.
Yeah.
But they inspired it. I think great record companies are driven by great individuals.
For sure. It's not the brick and mortar. It's the
No,
people that
it's
are
the
in the
people.
building. Yeah.
I watch the way Rob operates. I watch the way label heads operate. I watch the way Lucian operates. I've seen them in close hand. I've seen them thing. They're music guys. I love the way finance people are getting involved in music, but they'll never get it like us.
Yeah.
It's just a number to them. It's just a what's your decline, what's your decay, what's your this, what's your that. Bro, listen to the tune.
I'd say that, the limited amount of time that I spent with Lucian, I didn't know what to expect.
Yeah.
It was just like a mythical character and figure.
Yeah.
But when we sat down with him, very intelligent person, very smart,
Incredible.
wise.
Yeah.
But what I wasn't expecting was his love and passion for the music. I don't know why. I think it's because he just runs this massive corporate business. But Jesse played this song, unreleased record that she still hasn't put out to this day.
Yeah.
And plays it on her guitar, she's acoustic. And he goes, your music. Not this is music, like he's like, your music, your music. And he kept repeating that. And I was like, oh wow, this guy's really inspired by her.
Yeah.
And I for whatever reason, I wasn't expecting that. But I was like, oh, this is refreshing to know that Lucian Grange, head of a corporate company like this,
he's a music guy.
He's a music guy.
He was an A&R guy.
Yeah,
He's a publisher, he was an A&R guy.
The more time I spent with him, the more I realized how much of a music guy he is.
Robbie's as well. My heroes are LA, Jimmy, Armut, Berry. These are some of the greatest music executives. Rick with Russell when they ran the label. These are music people to the core. I mentioned Muff Winwood, we mentioned Ferdy, we mentioned Darkus, right?
Just like with the episode with Chris, man. Chris is a great A&R.
Chris is a great A&R guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, Chris is a proper A&R, but I look out for the A&R guys.
Yeah.
I less look at Chris because I looked at the English lot and then the guys who are the decade above me in the business. I'm in my early 50s. These guys are in their early 60s. So they were the guys breaking through. And when I mentioned Muff, he's like 70s. He might even be 80 now. I don't know. But these are the guys. I'm like, they're the best of the best of the best. And then I read the books. And I'm like, who is the best? Who did this?
Yeah.
Who did that?
Yeah.
And I'm not looking at the money guy in music. I'm looking at the guy who built a label, built an identity.
Yeah.
Right? And they inspire me. I want to know about these guys. Chris Blackwell, he started Island Records, right? Yeah. Amazing, right? Martin Mills, who owns XL with Richard,
Right.
But he's got the Beggars Group.
Right.
Guy inspires me. Emmanuel de Bertel in France, legend.
They still exist.
They fucking exist.
Yeah.
And by the way,
to this day,
I would like myself one day to be looked at. I got to achieve their status for me because they're miles ahead of me, but I want people to say, yo, he did all that in the major system and then he came out, he built that company, and today that company still exists, and I'm long gone. I'm whatever.
The legacy of it.
I'd like legacy. By the way, you might say your ego's crazy. Cool. I think any great record executive has to have an ego.
I don't think that way, but I know people will think about that and say that, but it is what it is. Like but you're honest about it.
Okay,
you don't hide it.
I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
I'm okay with it. Because guess what? What I love about my job is I've never had a hit record myself. I've helped other people have hits with their music.
Right.
That's what I remember. I'm the guy in the background. I'm doing your podcast, but I'm not doing Joe Rogan, right? Mm-hmm. But my artist could do Joe Rogan, or they could do Diary of a CEO, or they could do whatever the big podcast is. I'm talking, I hope the people watching this are inspired because they want to come in the music business. They want to be a background player.
The way that you're describing it is very different from I think a lot of people think about the music business. I think a lot of people think about it in like this different, that it's incredibly different today than what it is 10, 15 years ago. The music business is, in many ways not about the music.
Yeah.
A lot of people think that. And I think kids really get it confused. I say this all the time as well. When you're a young artist or a young manager and you want to have 5, 10 artists that you want to manage, I'm like, that makes zero sense to me, just from like a time perspective. And then
Focus.
Focus.
Yeah.
And then I speak to someone like you who's done it at the highest levels, and you say you signing 2 artists a year. So, and you're one of the best to do it.
Well, I think when I left Sony, I had 8 artists doing $500,000 or more on their prior album.
Yeah.
But by the way, once an artist has made their second album, the third album, they don't need you as much.
You're doing
They
it.
want to come in and talk to you and chat with you.
Yeah.
But you
Catch
ain't gonna.
up,
Yeah, they might
show
say,
you the music.
yo, can you do me a favor? Can you call so and so and so and so? Yeah, I can do that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But you're not calling around telling people, I'm handing you demos on a fresh. I'm doing the amplification.
You're doing
this guy's totally
amplification.
fresh. I don't have to, it's half as much work, a third as much work.
Yeah.
By the way, they might take 2 years touring because they're so big.
Yeah.
So in the 2 years touring, what am I going to do?
Right.
Sit there waiting for them? No, I have to go and do a new
So
thing.
you're going and building a new thing.
New one. So by the time I finished at Sony, we had 8 artists do $500,000 per album.
And that's the amazing thing to hear this, that because people think of the music business so fragmented and so different. It's like, oh, like anybody can be an artist today, day and age. You're giving a very fresh perspective, I think.
Yeah.
Where it's like, no, this is still about the music.
No,
Like,
it's always about music. It's called the music business.
Yeah.
You got to make a tune.
Yeah.
But by the way, if you make a tune and you haven't built an audience, who are you playing it to?
Right.
If you haven't built an audience,
in this day and age, you think that it's. I keep saying this day and age because I like to go back to that, but because I did hear you talk about this before. Where it's like, and I think this was an interview from like 10 years ago, where you said it'd be nice if you had an audience. It's way better if you have 20,000 people that are listening to your shit. But it's not about just the audience. But what about now? If that kid that's got 6 streams on Spotify, you're basically.
I'm saying, dude's been out there for. I said to them, a poor guy came and presented to me. Said, I am private on Instagram. I am not famous. I'd only accept you if I find 2 or 3 people that follow you
Yeah.
that I know, right?
Yeah.
If you just say, can I follow you, and I've never met you, delete. Because I put shit up there about my kids sometimes on there, do stuff about jiu-jitsu on there, stuff that I care about. I don't want somebody else looking at, it's none of their business, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not political on there, it's none of my business, I don't want to, that's not my shit. But I do that. I said, I told him I had 1,200 followers, I had 1,700, didn't realize it, okay. I follow 1,300 people back, so that's not a good sign. And his artists had 689 followers and followed 649 people. And I was like, how long's the artist been going? Oh, 2 years. I said, if I was young and I was public, I'd have 10,000 in 6 months.
Yeah.
I'd just be up there and I'd be doing it. I've seen artists come in who are so exceptionally beautiful, male or female, that if they just did nothing but smile and look cute, they could have tens of thousands of followers.
20,000 like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you add in music and personality, they can have 100,000 in 2 years. And if they add in one good song, they could have 100,000 in 10 weeks. But if you come and see me and you've been releasing music for 2-3 years and you got 649 followers and your last song has got 6 streams, you haven't done the work.
You're right.
You haven't done the work.
Yeah.
My son's really good at baseball. Why'd you say that? Because every time I pitch him the ball in the garden, he hits it.
Good analogy.
Cool.
Yeah.
Right. You want to now go to LA Dodgers, they just won the World Series, is that true?
Yeah.
And you want to say to the head coach, you don't even want to go in and see a scout. I want to see the head guy. And say, okay, why are you here? I want you to meet my son. Has he played Little League? Has he done this or done that? Does he play for his school? Does he play thing? Oh no. But trust me, when I throw the ball at him in the garden, he hits on the backyard. He hits it. Sweet.
Trust me.
Trust me.
Right.
So that's like, bro, there are certain things you have to do before you get to talk to a professional body.
What are some of those things? What are 3 things?
Find an audience. Post regularly on social media and make some music, and make sure you're not got your followers because you're a male ripped and take your top off and looking cute and little girls loving you, or a girl that's got half her cleavage hanging out and did it, and people say, oh, she's got loads of followers, and I'm like, yeah, because teenage boys are crazy on her. Make sure that if you have a following, it's not because you're a makeup influencer or this. Make sure it's because you're showing you're a musician. You're showing you like singing, whether it be covers or originals, whether it be you're finding viral things and you're singing them or doing. You're trying to. By the way, Adele hardly does any promo.
Now,
on her first album,
people forget that. Yeah.
She did a show called Loose Women.
Yeah.
It's like the most basic daytime TV. People say, she doesn't do any promo. I said, let me tell you, at the beginning, she'd turn up to everything.
Right.
Right? That girl's got talent like no one else. And she struggled to break through on album 1.
Mm-hmm.
She had to work hard. Now she's established it, she can be an enigma.
Mm-hmm.
She's earned the right to be an enigma. Yeah.
Yeah.
So go out there and do the work.
People forget that.
Also,
they say the same about Frank Ocean.
Yeah.
The amount of stuff that he did on his.
Wasn't he called Lonnie Burrell?
Frank Ocean?
Yeah, he was dropped. He was on a different label, and I think he was called Lonnie. I might be wrong.
I did not know that.
He was under a different name.
Future and them, like he did the stuff with Tyler the Creator. And them,
I think he was signed to Def Jam under a different name.
Okay.
Check on your phone. It'd be quite good.
Yeah,
Tell me I'm wrong. Frank Ocean.
Service here. Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. Be great to do it, but I believe Frank was dropped. Well, he wasn't even dropped. He was on Def Jam. They weren't even feeling what he was doing, so he made a new project with Malay, the producer.
Right.
And they put it up on SoundCloud or wherever it was, and everyone started buzzing on it. And one of the people that called them was the A&R from Def Jam who'd signed him and said, yo, we love this thing. And they're like, you know it's the artist you already have signed. Now, by the way, I'm not mad at the A&R, I'm not mad at Frank. Frank was going down one lane as a different artist. Please correct us if it's true.
So what exactly? It's
Frank Ocean was an artist before he was Frank Ocean, and his original name, I might be wrong, I thought it was Lonnie Burrell. I might be wrong.
Lonnie Burrell.
I think he had a prior.
Lonnie Burrell.
See?
Lonnie
Signed
Burrell.
to Def Jam previously. And then reinvented himself.
Wow.
Look how Chapel Roan reinvented themselves.
Right.
Look how Post Malone reinvented themselves. Look how Sam Smith is a reinvention of the previous Sam Smith.
But they all did the work.
They put the work in.
Yeah.
And I'm looking for the. By the way, if you can add in live shows and people turning up to your live shows,
oh, that's a game changer.
That's a game changer.
That's a game changer.
People
for sure.
buying your merch, that's a game changer.
Yeah.
But guess what? If you're doing dates to, let's say, 5 cities, and you're playing 2 to 500 caps, and you're selling them, and people are buying your merch, and you are regularly posting, your streams might be low.
Mm-hmm.
You might be streaming 10,000 streams a day. And I'm saying, bro, one good song
That's it.
on this person, game changer.
It's still, and even doing 300 to 500 cap rooms, selling merch, you're still making a living, a real living.
Yeah, that's the beauty today.
Yeah.
But the artist has to do A to B. The artist manager may help them. Maybe artist manager has to do B to D.
Yeah.
Then they're ready to be in the room. But trust me, you've done your work correctly. I'm coming to your room.
Of course, 100%.
Right? Like when you got those calls on Jesse.
Yeah.
On Figures.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Different
The
thing.
whole world was.
You could have done the same meetings.
I walked into label meetings, and I won't name where, but in our home territory, a year prior to that, played a bunch of music. They said and when we were done, was like they couldn't wait to get out of there.
Agreed.
And then they said, keep us informed. And it was like, okay.
They were right as well. You weren't ready. You weren't
know
ready.
What? And you know what? You're absolutely right.
Don't be mad at them.
I wasn't.
Because they go to their bosses and say,
No, I wasn't.
yeah.
And
the more narrative, remember I said your narrative's important.
They
The
were
story.
right. And here's what, this is a good lesson. Because when we went into that meeting, I went in with Jessie, and Jessie wanted to let her run the meeting, so she ran the meeting. But she played them. I'll say this, it was Lori Lee, actually.
Yeah.
Lori, you remember Lori Lee? She was in the UK for a little bit.
Don't know.
Obsessed with Jessie. Was at UMC at the time.
Yeah.
Her and Rich Castillo came to UMC Canada.
Yeah.
And
Rich is a good guy now.
yeah, he's good. Yeah, he's solid.
Yeah.
And Lori was obsessed with Jessie. And nobody really knew about her. And she's like, I really, really want to do something. But she knew I didn't want to do anything. We didn't want to do anything. I didn't want to sign in Canada. It was too early anyways. But she's like, please come to the meeting. She set up a meeting. There was 5 people in there.
Yeah.
Jessie played, I want to say 5 records. Like 3 of those records she played.
Yeah.
She said, no, this isn't for me though, but this is for somebody else. So she was just all kinds of different vibes.
Yeah.
So she was giving her the songwriter pitch, but saying, but this is also me.
Yeah.
So it was all over the place, that meeting.
She had to find herself.
Well, she found who she was.
No, but I'm saying she had to from there.
Yeah.
But I'm not mad. By the way,
Yeah.
everyone's got the right to pass.
Yeah.
I have no shame in saying, okay, I didn't get it, right?
Yeah.
And they call you 6 months later and go, bro, and you say, that's the same record I play. I'm cool with that.
Yeah.
Steve did not pick up Sam the first time I discussed it with him. They said, Nick, you got one with me, it's good. You know, I had to go and make the narrative.
Mm-hmm.
By the time I made the narrative, Steve then heard the music. If he heard the music the first time, he would have said, I don't get this. But when he heard it with the story and he saw the latch and then and then he heard Stay With Me and I'm Not the Only One to Lay Me Down, he's like, this is the greatest thing I've heard. It's going to change our lives.
But
the truth of the matter is, I was lucky Steve didn't just take the meeting and say to me, play me this new act.
Yeah.
He's like, you got one, it's on tour One Direction, I know the manager, I did One Direction at Sony, so I know the guys, give me this project.
Mm-hmm.
And Steve was focused. Steve was all about focus. When Sam reared their head, Dan McCarroll, that was the A&R guy. He was head of A&R.
Yes, there you go.
Dan McCarroll. And Dan came back from New York with Wendy Ong and Curtis Postel and said, the UK company has got one of the greatest artists we've ever seen. Steve called me and said, who's this artist they're all crazy on? At that point, he listened to the record differently.
Yeah.
If I play you songs and I tell you nothing's going on,
I know, I've been there.
you listen to it differently. You're like, yo, why are you wasting play? If I say to you, this is the hottest shit out there, this is what's happening, this is the TikTok, this is the Insta.
So you're selling on top of it, but also because the people are connecting
Our job is
to
to
it.
Sell.
Yeah.
What is your job? Your job's to sell this shit.
Yeah.
Lex has been on here. What a salesman. Chris, you can hear it in his voice, is a salesman.
Yeah. Yes.
Rochelle, who's on here, I've worked with her writers and stuff. She did a song with a band of mine, No Guidance. Victoria did, yeah. Rochelle is not like some of the guys you mentioned who are hard salesmen. She's charming.
She's very charming.
She's in the room, she's warm, she makes you feel comfortable.
Yes.
She speaks softly and nicely.
Yeah.
I'm an animated guy.
Yeah.
I'm a salesman,
Yeah.
right? I'm not talented enough, but I can tell you a narrative on my artist
Uh-huh.
and I can have you listen to me.
Mm-hmm.
I know it, I can feel it, I know what I'm doing there. But I'm doing it because I believe. I believe in the shit that I'm telling you. I believe in
It
the
shows.
artist.
Yeah, it shows.
And I think about this. And I go away and I go, what makes my artist... When I come to America, I got to step my game up. Because America's as big as Europe, right?
Right.
And I come in the market, the UK, it's a tiny market. Look at it as a percentage of the world.
Holds a lot of weight though, yeah.
Used to.
Yep.
At the minute, I think it's under-delivering. Executives over-delivering, you know.
Yeah.
We just had, at one point...
That's what I mean, but yeah.
But Harry signed directly in America. Adele signed directly in America now.
Mm-hmm.
Artemis last year, Breakthrough, signed directly to Elliott in America. Americans are picking up directly because our market seems slow at the minute. Now, that will change. There will be a change, I'm sure. But when I came to America back in the day, I would have million sellers. I'd be in a publishing meet where the guy's got a gold disc above his head like it's a big thing. That's 500,000. And he would be talking down to me because my record wasn't a hit in America. And I'd be like, I'll come and show that. Is what I'm thinking, right?
Yeah.
And then what makes it, you're from Canada.
Yeah.
You come to America, they talk down to you when you first get here. I'm not just, because America is such a big, powerful market. So I had to learn and I had to earn the respect. How I earned the respect? Make hits.
Yeah.
Prove to some of the writers and publishers, you have a European hit, it pays big. So 2/3 of the world is outside America. You have a hit outside of America and it's 2/3 of the world, that can pay you crazy, right? So I worked with Zach Katz, JR, and an English writer, Wayne Hector, on JLS, and I had a song called Everybody in Love, went #1. I'm telling you, they got paid. You know, not all Calvin songs, like Promises wasn't as big at radio as a normal Sam song in America.
Right.
But you told me it was a life-changing amount of money for you and Jesse and the team, right?
Yep.
The Duo record was a huge hit, right? They weren't #1 airplay records in America.
Nope, not at all.
Right, okay. But you made crazy bank on it, right? Or the artist got paid properly on it. Correct. Because there is a world outside of here. By the way, I always wanted to break here. I always want to be successful here. Because it is the pinnacle of the music business.
Yeah, for sure.
I believe that.
Still to this day.
And I respect that.
Yeah.
And my heroes were American executives.
Yeah.
Or executives who worked out of America.
Same.
Right? And you're a Canadian, you feel the same. Well, you're
Yeah,
not Canadian, you're Colombian, but...
Born in Canada, my parents are Colombian.
Okay,
I'm
cool.
Canadian for sure.
So for me, I had to come here and I had to, that guy, it was a guy who had the 500 disc above his head and talked down to me, and I'm talking about a project that just did 1.6 million on his last album, and saying, yo, my writers aren't going to write on that. And I'm like, but they wrote on this, and you got the disc above your head. That's 1/3 of what I'm talking to you about. And he's like, yeah, I'll bring the guys to you. Yeah, I might speak to them, right? I was like, you're killing me. You're killing me. And I've got the bigger project.
Right.
But I hadn't done it in their market.
Right.
And it's very, now, the great executives, the Clives, the LAs, but I think LA, because he'd been an incredible writer, producer, success, realized the power of, by the way, for writers, they get paid for radio play outside America. They only get paid for radio play on Sirius here, right? Oh, sorry, I mean, as performance.
Yeah.
Oh no, sorry, the artists, sorry. The artists, you get paid for radio play. You understand what I mean? The artists get paid for radio play. You don't in America, right? Other than the Sirius. That can be a big amount of money as well. This things, and by the way, touring in Europe is huge, huge. Australia, Asia is huge.
Absolutely.
So I wanted to earn the respect. I wanted to go to America and be successful. So when I did have this incredible run, and I was treated respectfully, offered American jobs, I was like, shit, I've now stepped to level again.
Yeah, of course.
I'm playing with the big boys. I loved it, and I want to continue doing it.
Yeah.
And I think it's that ambition. Well, hopefully you realize I still got that. And by the way,
Oh, absolutely. It's very clear, man.
Yeah, but
It's very clear.
and also,
You love this shit.
I love this shit. I'm addicted to this shit. I love it. And I'm thankful. I'm thankful that I got to do it for 31 years.
Yeah.
And compared to a real job, this isn't a real job. And the highs, there's no better high.
Yeah.
The night of the Oscars, when we won an Oscar, pooh, Jimmy was the writer, Sam was the artist, Sam co-wrote the record, and it announces.
Yeah, it was massive.
James Napier, Sam Smith. I was like, shee. I never thought that would happen. The Grammy night, Song of the Year, Record of the Year, Best New Artist, Pop Vocal
What
Album
was
of the
bigger
Year.
for you, the Oscar or the Grammy?
I needed to win Oscars. I needed to win Grammys. I never thought in my life I would ever get to go to the Oscar and be part of an award, ever.
Yeah.
So the Grammy's more important because I'm a music guy.
Right.
But then to actually get an Oscar, I was just like, I can't articulate. I cannot articulate. Without doubt, the Grammy's more important.
Yeah.
No question.
Yeah.
I was gutted that Beck won Album of the Year. We were the Album of the Year. No question in my mind. I don't want to disrespect Beck or Michelle who signed Beck or anything else, but that was not Beck's finest moment. And Sam's, I'm sorry, will go down in history. Look, UK albums of an ilk, of a quality.
Kanye walked up and then came down?
What?
Kanye walked up and then came down? Is that when Beck won that? Is that
Did
year?
Kanye walk up that year as well?
He walked out as Beck was like receiving, but then he
Okay.
he kind of faked the crowd as if he was going to take the mic, and then he walked
like
away.
Like the Taylor Swift thing he did with the MTV Awards.
It was that's what people thought,
Yeah.
and then he went because Beck was winning an award, and then he just walked off. It was like, nah, I'm just
For
joking.
me, I remember because I was with Steve and I was with the Capital team, and Steve got, oh yeah, we won that as well. And I'm like, no, we didn't. Oh shit, Beck's on your label. I'm so sorry.
Oh yeah.
Because I was like, my dream was, no one had won the 4
right.
as a male since Christopher Cross. And I love Christopher Cross. I love Yacht Rock. And I was like, shit, we could do this, and we didn't. So was it a great night? Incredible. Now I look back and I say, the last record I made at Universal won a Grammy for duo, which was Unholy. By the way, I never won anything. Sam won.
Sure, but
5 seconds won things.
That's all part of your story, though,
Agreed.
your success and everything.
But I just want to be clear.
Yeah, of course.
I'm very lucky my artist won this shit.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was driving them to, the way I see it is my job was to drive them to collect their awards.
Yeah, you drove them to the show.
I drove the bus.
Made sure that they got there.
And I made sure they had the best seat on the bus. And I made sure everybody else sat on the bus was for their benefit.
Yeah.
And that's my job.
I love it.
Because I love being thing. And by the way, if the manager sat there directly behind me saying, why are we going left? Why are we going right? Why can't we go this way and that way? That's their job.
Yeah.
Just to say to me, and the artist saying, I want to go the long way round. And you say, okay, but it's going to take 18 months longer. And the artist says, that's how I feel. My job is to hear that, respect that, ask them if they understand the consequence of that. But my job is not to tell them. My job is to help them.
Mm-hmm.
Our job is to service the artist.
Right.
And then it's to make a piece of music that connects with the public.
Mm-hmm.
They're so simple. And by the way, I want to say thank you as well at this point, because I've seen the guests you've had, Lex, Rochelle, Chris. It's like
Troy.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Troy. Troy's
Carter.
another person I know really well. I rate him so highly.
Great, man.
You've had some good guests. I brought the tone down, the level down.
What's that? No, not at all. No, not at all. Listen, this has been great. I love the passion, and I mean, you're obviously incredible success in the business, and you absolutely crushed it.
By the way, I want to be clear. I'm now looking to the future because the past is done.
And that's what we got to do.
As Lucian Grange once said to me after I had that brilliant year where Sam and Five Sauce and everything, and the Grammys, I never got to hang out with them, and the Brits, I came home and I said, I want to apologise. I didn't get to hang with you and see you, and I haven't spoken to you really since the award season started. And he said, Nick, congratulations. What you got next? And I said, well, and he said, I banked that. Tell me what we got next.
Yeah.
I know what we did.
Yeah.
I want to know what we got next. He said, now we step up a game.
And I
was like, that's the coach.
That's the coach. Yeah.
Rob was the same.
Yeah.
I went in one year and I said, Rob, first year I was there, we hit smash budget, and I went into Rob's office to collect my bonus. And he said, we talked about the bonus, and he said, look, you haven't really delivered. And I said, bro, you gave me a budget, I broke the budget, He said, you broke the budget by cutting costs, having international success, But you're an A&R guy. I want you to have platinum albums.
Yeah.
And you haven't had one yet here. So come back in, break the budget with a platinum album of your own. Okay. Year later, didn't. The third year, boom, platinum. My first platinum at Sony. I was like, yes, I've done it. I think I had 2 in the same year. It might have been, I had a really, I came out the traps quick. Once it started working, year 3 again. Never worked in year 1. And I went into his office and he said, you know when you walk up from the car park in Sony old offices in Great Marlborough Street? I said, yeah. He said, do you know the albums you see on the wall? I said, yeah, they're like Battle of Hell, Thriller. There's a Jamiroquai album. There's all these things, a Sade album as you go up the thing. Do you know why they're there? I said, I heard because they all sold 1 million in the UK. He said, yeah. He said, you haven't got one of those yet. I was like, first you say to me, budget's not good enough. Then you say have a platinum album. Then I have a bunch of platinum albums. And then you say you don't have 1 million in the UK. And he said, yeah, until you're on that back
Pushing
wall.
you, man. Yeah, he's
Until
pushing
that
you.
back wall. He said, and I was like, bro, this guy's not giving me a break. But trust me, I got quite, if that back wall still existed when I left,
Yeah.
I had quite a few who would have been on that back wall.
On that back wall.
But without someone recognizing saw my ambition
Yeah.
and said, every time I thought I ticked a box, that box was an easy box for you to tick. You got to tick the next one,
Right.
and the next one. And they inspired me.
It's the one thing about this business that I really do love is that meeting people like yourself, every single exec or artist that I've had on this podcast, competitive. Whether
Oh my
people
God.
don't realize this is incredible.
I am mad competitive.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
But-
you're a
but-
former
but every-
footballer.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone we talk about, all these execs,
Yeah,
trust me,
yeah.
they want the
Oh
next
yeah,
hit
yeah,
ahead
yeah.
of you.
Absolutely.
Monty's trying to beat John Janik, trying to beat.
Monty's trying to beat his own. Like he's trying to
Record.
get top 10 records. I don't
Yep.
think he still has it.
Yep.
Like, and that's what they're always gunning
Yeah.
for. Like I know that from firsthand experience.
You know
I never
what?
heard Monty or Avery say it, but I've heard someone close enough to say like, we've got 6 of the top 10, not
But
good enough.
let me say this one other thing that's more important to me. Having worked with Jay, having worked with Sam, having had the 5 Seconds of Summer, having worked with an incredible artist like Imogen, and all the artists I've worked with who've been platinum, multi-platinum, you want an artist who is so special to the world. Look, the book's about Clive Davis. It's because of Whitney Houston.
Yeah.
Clive's had an incredible career, but
Sure.
Whitney Houston. If you sign Prince, there'll be a book about you.
Right.
If you, Berry Gordy built a whole label,
Of course.
but you got Marvin Gaye, What's Going On, and you've got Diana Ross in there,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's so the artists, we talk about George Martin because of the Beatles.
Mm-hmm.
So you want those artists that define careers.
That's the only reason.
The artist that told you he signed Amy Winehouse, and he wrote a book, and it's all about he signed Amy Winehouse.
Right.
That's what we would do. By the way, I want more, but I don't. But for me,
I only have a podcast because I managed Jesse for
Yeah.
so many years,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah.
my success
Yeah,
is
yeah,
a lot
yeah.
of it is attributed
Yeah.
to that, and I manage
Yeah.
other artists
Yeah.
today, but that's why people pay
Yeah.
attention.
But I want to have significant new artists. I would like to have an artist, but like Taylor. I'd love to have an artist like Taylor.
Yeah,
But
for sure.
Sam's incredible. I will forever be proud. And whatever I do next couldn't have happened if I hadn't had Sam.
Absolutely.
And what I did before couldn't have happened if I hadn't had Jay when I was 24.
Yeah,
Right?
JZ.
Jay said,
You talk about books a lot. I want to end it on this
Yeah.
one over here. And I ask
Yeah.
most of my guests,
Yeah,
sometimes
yeah,
I forget.
yeah.
What are 3 books that you would recommend for people to read? Doesn't have to be about the music business or not.
I'm a huge, huge, huge reader. I read a lot of books about finance.
What's a good book about finance?
Well, a good book about life and finance is The Tao of Charlie Munger.
Oh, okay.
There's another one of
The
Warren
Tao
Buffett.
of-
Tao, T-A-O
Oh, okay.
of Charlie Munger. There's another brilliant one, obviously Warren Buffett, who's his partner.
Right.
And they just talk
Or
about
Shire.
how making good and bad investments, and actually a lot of the stuff you can take it out as investments and investing in people, in artists and thing when you're building a company. That's really interesting. What else do I love as a book? Now I'm on the spot. I'd have to look in the things. There's so many.
You just posted one on Instagram.
Go on.
I forget the name of the book. It's,
Oh yeah, the Will Page one, Pivot.
yeah, it's Pivot.
Incredible book.
Yeah.
Will Page was the in-house economist, the chief economist of Spotify.
Right.
And
Okay.
it's
Yeah.
really interesting. It's a brilliant book. I recommend that to anyone.
Okay.
Okay, I love that book. What else would be a book that I absolutely love? Oh, look, let's go there because we've talked about it. Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell.
That's a great book.
I think Malcolm
Love that
Gladwell's
book.
great. I love 4 Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss back in the day.
Yeah.
I love a book called Winners, which Alistair Campbell wrote, where he interviews like loads of people who've been mega successful in their careers and they ask them about it. And it's like a chapter on each. Alex Ferguson, I think, did it with Alistair Campbell.
Wow.
It's unbelievable. I look for books that just inspire me. I don't read much fiction. I read a lot of non-fiction.
Same.
I listen to a lot of audiobooks. The Inner Tennis one about the inner coach or whatever it's called, the one about the tennis guy who stops showing people how to play tennis and tells them that they already know and gives them that confidence. I love that idea because I feel like a coach.
Yeah.
That's what my job is.
Yeah.
Managers are coaches.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Some days you just say, bro, I got you. Other days like, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah.
We got to do X, Y, and Z.
Yep.
Other days you're like collecting checks.
Yep.
But you're doing something
Days
different.
you're not
every day.
talking to them and you're just making it happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes you try and explain to a family member or someone else what you actually do to get your 20%.
No 2 days are alike in this business.
Agreed. I love that.
I love that too.
But I want to inspire young people to do it. I want to do it again and again and again.
Wow.
And by the way, I will not do it. I did not find Sam Smith. Joe had a scout called Alex and he sent it to her, Latch, before it had been released. Joe played it to me, said, I think we should meet the people behind it. Sounds great. What do you reckon? I said, yeah. 5 Seconds of Summer actually was just Richard bringing it to me because I'd done good work with him before. My mum recommended one of them, Lamar. He was on a TV show. And I said, yeah, but Universal have the rights to the TV show. And then the guy came forth and had a bad meeting at Universal. And his manager, which was Richard, said, look, I'll talk to Lucien because he's got 3 other acts off the show and see if he'll let you go somewhere else because you're not happy. And Lucien was actually cool and said, look, he's not happy here. He's the 4th act on the show. I let him go and he came and he was a big artist for me. I was really thankful. David Massey brought me Big Brothers, one of my other projects. It was really successful. So even my hits, my successes came through the team.
Yeah.
And
it's a network.
It's a network. When I say I, that's always bullshit. We.
Yeah.
And I say I a lot and I don't mean to be disrespectful to him. Joe and I did 20 years together.
Wow.
Right? And we sold, I don't know, maybe 120, maybe 130 million albums,
Incredible.
maybe 1 billion plus singles.
Incredible.
I'm a geek for even knowing that. But the reality is, I couldn't have done it without a team.
Yeah.
And the people who work for me have been brilliant, and the managers and the artists. So it's a brilliant, brilliant thing. And the people I do it with next are the young kids I work with now, or maybe one of the people watching this podcast. Maybe one of them's going to be my superstar of the future. Because I now, at my age, I'm coaching the A&Rs as well.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I'm trying to inspire them.
Yeah, of course.
But they're bringing them hits.
With this conversation right here, I'm sure you're going to inspire a ton of them, man.
Thank you.
Nick Raphael.
My pleasure.
Appreciate
Nice to
you,
see
man. Thank you.
Thank you.